Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Aurora. Please welcome to Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. This is level 1, lesson 13. Hola, Pedro. Thank you for being here. This lesson is all about sun gazing and feeding the light body with a special emphasis on how to fly rainbow lasagna with the sun. This will also be a modernized sharing relevant to all the contextualization that I talk about when I hold up my notebook of bad news, my notebook of things that we don't like that are in our world right now, and how this relates to light, because this is basically a battle that you're in terms of spiritual warfare between false light and real light. So when I did my lessons from 10 years ago, I was teaching you about how to eat light. And in our world right now, there's an inundation of false light that is making it very difficult for you to eat and access real light. And in this class, we always do the fun thought experiment where we can exchange the word light for information or data or even sentience or levels of consciousness. So when I talk about false light, what we're talking about is false consciousness, false awareness, false sentience. I don't even know if that's the correct concept, but a false sense of being self-aware or a false awareness in the world. And then versus real awareness, real consciousness, real sentience, which is what we receive from the giant ball of awareness in the sky that is known as the sun. So we will, hey Aurelia, good to see you. We will be doing a lot of talking about how to fly rainbow lasagna with the sun beyond just the regular steps of sun gazing that I have outlined in this class. And also I have some wonderful sharings from a student participant who can't be here on recording today. Her name is Allison and she does sun gazing quite regularly and wanted me to share about her practice. And also a great question from Charlie B. So I want you guys to know that if you ever have if you can't be here during the time of the recording when we're in class together, but you want to share something, you can always email that or comment that to me. I'll be happy to share it with our class. And then also, if you ever have a question that you'd like to send to me beforehand, that actually helps me out a lot so that I know how to organize my curriculum and organize my time. And I'm happy to speak to any of your questions about that. So first up, let's start off with that sharing from Allison, because this is very beautiful. I've already gone through the steps of sun gazing. Wait, I want to bring up something else. Sorry, I have two things here on my notes. I have to press buttons. This is what I'm looking for. So this is read verbatim from Allison, what she sent to me. She said, quote, I look at the sun directly with my eyes open and follow strict protocols. Only look at the sun with eyes open for the first 45 minutes of sunrise or last 45 minutes of sundown. And day 1, she did 10 seconds, and day 2, 20 seconds, and day 3 added 10 seconds until she could reach 40 minutes. That's actually a lot. And the effects are enhanced by being grounded feet on the ground while sun gazing. So I'm going to break in for a moment and I'm going to say that that is absolutely truthful. Although, like, I live in a second story apartment and I do sun gazing here all the time, and I will stand on my balcony and do my sun gazing. Really, especially when you begin, one of the most critical aspects of this is to also ground at the same time, because what you're doing is creating a circuit wherein you are connecting your higher faculties to the sun, the stars, and the ephemeral world of pure light and pure energy, but then you're also connecting your physicality presence to the world of matter, which is exemplified by the planet that you live on and also envisioned as Earth's core. So although your feet don't literally touch Earth's core because you would be on fire. And also your eye of mind or your brain or your forehead doesn't literally touch the sun because also you would be on fire. But you envision the connection at these ends of the spectrum of the octave of what it is to be human. And that is the purpose of this exercise. So returning to what Allison was saying, um, uh, although once you have hit the time limit, you can extend the sun gazing period rather, and benefits with eyes shut, observing with third eye, what I experienced. So this is important and why I wanted to share from her experience. She says that within 2 weeks, she started feeling calmer, had a decreased physical appetite, over time felt much more grounded, stable, and connected, had improved sleep, relieved symptoms of PTSD. That's really big. And helped her to get out of the fight or flight mode, which she was in for 24/7, 365, with way too much overdose of adrenaline and cortisol. And from there, a calmer, less reactive state and able to make better decisions and healthier life choices. So I think that's just a beautiful firsthand testimonial from someone who's been going through this process. In my life, I've gone through all of these different levels of sun gazing. It's just like sometimes, whatever, you're in the summertime and you're extremely tan, and you're like, yeah, I can be out in the sun and I'm not going to burn at all. And then sometimes it's like, it's been a long winter and I'm just emerging and I've been wearing sweaters and all sorts of coverings on my body. And then my skin is pale and vulnerable. And then I have to slowly increase my exposure to the sun again. I have found that to be truthful with my sun gazing practice. And that there are times when it's been much easier for me to do my sun gazing. Like if you access the original recordings that are from 10 years ago, I included in there two. One is called Sun Gazing on a Spring Morning, and one is called How to FRL with the Sun. And they're both recorded from me, like in my old backyard in Woodstock. And when I tune in on those energetic feeling states that I had from recording those videos, like life was so different for me then. Our world was so much less inundated by this stuff. You can be skeptical and be like, oh, why does this stuff have an impact on you and your sun gazing? And the answer is, this stuff is directly related to those persistent white aerosols that are flying in the sky quite a lot these days. And when I lived in Woodstock over 10 years ago, when I first came here as Aurora, there were a minimal amount of those aerosols. And especially in my area of upstate New York, it was actually not even really a thing that I noticed. I simply had a direct connection with the sun, which was wonderful whenever the natural weather patterns allowed this to happen. And of course, in upstate New York, there are many cloudy days, many rainy days, and then many snowy days, which is why I wasn't always able to connect with the sun. And that was what prompted and precipitated, one of the reasons and the factors for my relocating myself to California. But in California, what I found, that was around 2013 when I first moved out here, a lot of these persistent white aerosols. And that campaign really only increased in the past 10 years that I've lived here. And I know it's not only in my area of the world. I am really quite aware that those persistent white aerosols are a plague that is affecting our whole entire world. And that is one of the main assaults of consciousness and diminishment of free will and sovereignty that we are enduring. That it's not just a sense of particles or clouds obstructing your connection and your viewpoint of the sun, but that it's also this stuff, which is the accumulation of particles coming from what is sprayed in the atmosphere, assembling into the body, into the neurology, into the retinas, optic nerve, and processing centers of the brain, bloodstream, skin, sebaceous glands, basically all areas of your anatomical light body in your physical body, and creating huge impediments to being able to eat the sun. So, if you lived 2,000 years ago, your life of being a sun gazer and a spiritual aspirant would have been completely different and calibrated completely differently. You would be able to be like, oh, I think I'll have a spiritual realization and awakening now. I would just ingest the sun. This would be wonderful. Likewise, if you just simply went to a market 2,000 years ago and you purchased some bread, you'd be like, oh, this is, the sustainer of life. This is, like the primary food that we eat as alive beings. Like the wheat would be alive. It would not be sprayed with glyphosate. It would not have any types of additives, fillers, or diminishment in it. It would be still a very alive food that is filled with an enormous amount of light. So to summarize, the light quotient that is available to you right now in this time place is minimal. It makes it super duper difficult to accrete light. And accrete means kind of like gather around and towards you. And it's what you're doing with your light body, with your information body. And light is information. So you're not in a light environment. You're in a poverty environment. You don't have a lot of light to accrete around you. Things have been blocked out from your optical view, and things have been blocked out from the direct energetic access that you should have, and things have been blocked out from the food supply. The answer, as I grab my sculpture, to all of this is to flying rainbow lasagna, which is why we'll talk and really emphasize today how to flying rainbow lasagna with the sun. Because as I hope you're in comprehending and really embodying throughout being in this class, this is a tool for overcoming obstacles. So like I did another nice Ask Me Anything or sharing of my Aurora stories this past Monday about how I've overcome a lot of neurological damage in my body by using the flying rainbow lasagna. And that's because wherever there are obstacles, or like, let's say, you're driving through roads, and roads are like neurological paths in your brain. And it's like, look, here's a dead end, under construction, giant potholes, whatever it is, like you can't drive through there. Finding or creating a pathway around those obstacles. And that is one thing that you can do with flying rainbow lasagna. So the key point is, even if there are obstacles to your direct connection with the sun and the world of pure light and ephemeral energy, you can use the flying rainbow lasagna as a tool to jump up and over those obstacles and reach that source of nourishment and sentience and consciousness in spite of that, or nonetheless, and gain everything that you need. And my job, what I'm trying to do, is to get everybody self-sufficient. So as I grab my little pad and start to draw here, because this is going to be relevant to talking about some of the impediments in your world right now. Let me squint, press buttons, do the right thing. All right, I'm going to start off with some of my amazingly fancy stick figures. Wait, make sure the pencil's up. Okay, here's some stick figures. And I always say, you guys know I can really draw, but it's just hard with these digital pens. Let's just draw a couple of people here. Your patience. All right. So let's also draw the sun. Gotta change colors. Yeah. And let's put the sun over here. He's like a child's drawing. It's like, I'm in kindergarten. I did it myself. Okay, guys, thank you for joking. So the idea is that each one of these persons has their own innate and direct connection with the sun. And each person should be getting energy directly from their own solar connection. Each person has a direct pathway or a direct line being able to go to the sun. These are allegories, not literalisms. So just know that. It's like, but each person should have their own innate connection and capacity. But let's say that there's a problem. Like, now let's draw a barrier. And for right now, we're just going to say this jagged line represents a barrier that is between you and the sun. That barrier is a technological barrier, frequency barrier, consciousness barrier, any kind of cognitive barrier, anything that prevents you from effectively connecting to the sun and solar energies and the energies that come off of the sun. As I drink a little bit of water here, hold on. They are timelines, and possibilities. So each one of these rays of consciousness, it's consciousness, awareness, and information. It's also time itself. And I mean, it speaks to the DNA. Oops, I don't know what I just did after erasing. It speaks to something just happened. I don't know what happened. No, go forward. I don't know. Go forward. Go forward. There. Here, let's erase. These aren't supposed to be here. I don't know how that happened. Just go with it. Okay, good. But time is hugely empowering. When you ingest time from the sun, when there's no barrier and timelines flow directly into you, that's when you get empowerment, when you get new ideas and new ways of being able to do something in your life. It's a very, very positive thing. Right now, there's limitations, and not everyone is able to connect to the sun effectively. So let's say that this is me over here. This person over here represents me right now. And let's say I'm able, let's draw a flying rainbow lasagna. First of all, here's like a purple colored flying rainbow lasagna. And I've got part of it connecting to me over here and part of it connecting to the sun. And I use that to jump up and over that energy barrier. So I'm able to get lots and lots of beautiful, yummy, delicious sun energy. And that's what this big giant line is coming into me over here. Lots and lots of sunlight energy is coming into me over here. What I can do is I can voluntarily choose through non-locality and DNA connection to send that light energy out to other people. You'd be like, oh, I got fresh groceries. I got plenty for me. I'm going to send some out to you too. And that is literally what I do here in this class through my verbalizations, through my artwork, through my music, and through my different personal sessions that I do with people. That is voluntary and it's also consensual. These people over here are not in any way stealing from me. I'm like, oh, I got plenty of avocados from the store and I'm happy to send some out to you. And that's a positive form of uplift. And my goal when I send these ideas and energy out to you is to be able to get you up and running so that each one of you, here's a purple flying rainbow lasagna shape kind of over here with you, you can connect to the sun up here. And then you also can create a flying rainbow lasagna shape here. And then you can connect to the sun over here too. So that way each person becomes self-sufficient. Key point. My goal is for each one of you is to become self-sufficient in connecting to the sun. And the sun also implies the entire world of pure light, the entire world of consciousness and abstract information, and to become fed and empowered from that connection. And so that's why I'm teaching you this technique. So first I give or gift to you the solar energies, and you are able to get the concept of what I'm talking about, and then you put this into practice and do it yourself, all right? But from what I was talking about last week, now I also have to talk about the things that are happening that are very unfair in our world. What I'm holding up here, that I spoke about how there is this frequency blockade between humans and the sun that has been artificially erected. And then the thing that I jokingly have called the pickles of the dead. I know I get very silly, but it's the best way to talk about it. So I'm making you can't see it. I have to maybe choose a better, a different font, something. Can't really see what's going on. So I'm just going to scribble. So I'm making these kind of light blue scribbles here, but please think of them as little tiny dots. These are little false light dots. What does the word that I have written here, what does it do inside of the body? First, let's draw some of these little wiry black things. These are like these little fibers that are all throughout most people's bodies. And those little wiry fibers aren't just pesky things, although they are pesky things. They have a purpose. And what they do with their purpose is to assemble what are essentially little tiny blue crystals. So I'm drawing like these little blue crystals and stuff like that. And those little crystals all contain like these little dots, these little false lights. And the false lights are also through the bloodstream, major organs, central nervous system, all up and down the spine. And they especially congregate around the eyes, the pineal gland, the brain stem. So they're really, really centered in like the sensory organs, and they really affect and afflict and limit cognitive ability. So these are part of the barriers. The barrier is not just this frequency barrier in the sky. It is also barriers that are internal and neurological. But let's say you're like me and you're like, I don't like these internal neurological barriers. I think I'll clean them out. So here's me like, I'm going to clean stuff out. And these are that, I don't know why that showed up there. That shouldn't be there. But the problem is that you have, why does that keep happening? I don't want that to happen. Bad things just happened and I didn't make them happen. I want you to know that. I didn't try that, and I didn't try that, and I didn't try that. But go back to this. These guys over here, there's different classes. It is a caste system, and I think what I've drawn is actually pretty good. There's me, self-cleared, and I would be considered the lowest man on the totem pole. In spiritual attainment, I would be considered the most spiritually attained person because I've cleared this stuff out. But in terms of the hierarchy created and controlled by this technological stuff, I would be the lowest, most hated, most reviled person. This person has no technology in them, has no wetware, has no control system in them. They're the worst. This person over here would be considered a peasant, mostly black fibers with a little bit of those blue crystals and false light infrastructure there. And this guy would be considered an elevated person. Almost 100% of the human being has been filled with false light, has been filled with erroneous information, has been filled with false crystals. And this person does not receive their information and their sustenance for their body from the sun. They receive their information and sustenance from their body by getting it from this guy over here. So this person over here, let's show them eating like some food. This is some green salad. See that? This person over here is going to eat a nice salad for lunch. It's going to go inside of them here. And then it's going to go into their tummy. And then their electrons are going to get hijacked at the level of the mitochondria. Here, I'll draw some mitochondria for you. So here's a mitochondria. This is deep inside of this guy's cell. So now we're doing like a blow up out of this guy's body. So now you can see like deep inside of this guy's body, you've got a mitochondria. And the mitochondria has these amazing, severely convoluted membrane structures. And that membrane structure is where the electron transport chain happens. And you end up getting a distinction between protons. We make protons red, and electrons. Like here's some red protons, and then electrons. And let's make electrons green. And the technological stuff steals the electrons. It's like, oh, delicious electrons. I think I'll steal these and not use them for the biological and cognitive support of this person that actually ate the salad over here. I think that I will use them either to build more technological infrastructure, or I will send those electrons to this guy over here. This guy over here did not eat a salad. And he looks down upon salad eaters. He's like, you loser, you salad eating loser. Eating and pooping and being gross, kind of like an Agent Smith from that movie, The Matrix. It's very hateful and disgusted in his really twisted, grotesquely twisted and distorted state. So it has become a total inhuman, and also is really antithetical to human behavior and human values. Is an energy vampire or cannibal, and has no problem whatsoever with stealing the energy off of this person over here. And the energy flow is unidirectional. So let me just choose a color here. The energy flow is unidirectional from this guy who's innocent and a peasant who eats salad to this guy. It does not flow in this direction over here. No, it does not. This guy is never going to support this guy. This guy is never going to give to this guy. He's never going to give him something and be like, oh, here, let's support your liver or your whatever, pancreas or some part. No, that never happens. This guy over here literally is called food by this guy over here. Have to start to comprehend this. Class system, caste system, hierarchy. And you got a whole class of people that are treated, quote unquote, as food, and that are looked at as never going to be at this level of attainment, which to this technological world is looked at as positive and elite. Remember, me over here with no wetware, the worst. This guy over here, full of wetware, the best, according to the technological value system. And then this guy over here is the middle, the mediocre. It's just food, just a person that is being fed upon. And what is different than, I've talked in this class about humaneros, the concept, like from Carlos Castaneda, of being emotional food for many, many years, and that's something that predates the technological interferences in our world. But this is something that is 100% technological, that this guy over here has no particular capacity to draw energy off of another person without the installation of this wetware. But with the installation of this wetware, it becomes empowered to draw this energy off and cannibalize off of other people. This guy over here is also loyal to his wetware. He does not want those false crystals and false lights to be removed. He likes the pickles of the dead. He likes the pickles of the dead and their dead pickle juice flowing all over him and all through him, to the point that he says, there is no me anymore. There's just the dead things that live in me and flow through me. And then I eat others. And this guy over here has no problem making this guy sick in the way that he eats them, because they do things like give people cancer. Yeah, it's just really horrible, horrible, horrible stuff. That this guy over here does not eat this guy in a very, very nice way at all. He will take away from him, take his vitality, take his biophotons, take his energy, take his salad that he ate for lunch, and also create an enormous amount of imbalance in the physicality structure, including to the point of creating devastating diseases and tumors like cancer, and has zero compunction against doing any of that. And what you have is this gamification of ascension that is the antithesis of real ascension. Because in real ascension, again, you're supposed to have each person with their own direct connection to the sun. And you want energy, go to the sun. And in this blockaded realm where there's gamification, if you want energy, get it from another person. You want energy, you try to get it from this person. This person's like, sorry, I got no wetware. Can't get it from me. But he's like, okay, fine, then I'll get it from that guy over there, or from that guy over there, or from that guy over there. And he might have a whole farm of people that he's getting energy from, to the point that this guy might not have to eat at all. And I want to just bring that to your cognitive awareness, so that you can start to even think about what the ramifications of this are in terms of false ascension and false light teachers. So first of all, this system here, this gamification of ascension and this artificial system that has been created, is totally upheld and promoted by the power structure. The power structure is your government, your military, your intelligence systems, dark magic societies, established religions, and many other thought systems. So pretty much a lot of the entrenched power structures of your world, and especially technology. And I always leave out the technocrats, but the technocrats love this system. And that there are those who are this type of person here that are vying for supremacy within that system. And that they are not trying to, what I teach in this class, which is to develop your own direct connection to the sun. That's what a real spiritual aspirant does. Gets energy and ideas and time energy directly from the sun. You don't get it from cannibalizing other people. That is a wrong thing to do. That is a betrayal. That is an assault. That is a diminishment of the entire planetary ecosystem of consciousness and of energy, and of a distortion of the entire system of what ascension is. Why does this matter? Because in order for you to activate your higher faculties and do this the fair way that you're supposed to, go like this and like this, you have to create light. Please mute yourself. Meeting. Please mute yourself if you just entered the meeting. I cannot stop my whiteboard for you. You have to get energy to be able to make this connection. And you know where you get this energy from? Eating a salad, which is full of light, and then accreting the light from that salad and having it go into, let's get a blue color here, into your pineal gland. So here's your giant exaggerated blue dot, that's your pineal gland in your head. And then being able to create that tendril of attention that reaches out and touches on the sun. And then this beautiful rapport that happens between you and the sun. That doesn't happen when you're being fed upon by this guy over here. So it would be very, very blithe for me to say, well, yeah, you just simply accrete light and activate your higher faculties. Bada bing, bada boom, you're ascending. No, that is not actually very easy to do in this circumstance because you literally have a system for consciousness reduction and a power abuse control system, or a control system run by power abusers that is attempting to prevent you from ever creating your own pineal gland here, pineal gland strengthening connection to the sun and the stars, and definitely is hoping to prevent you from that moment of attainment where you can bypass eating a salad because you now have such a strong rapport that you can eat nothing but pure light from the sun. These guys over here, their whole entire agenda is to make sure that nobody actually gets to that real level of Christhood and ascension where you are able to genuinely transcend the need to eat physical food and the need to have physical resources, and you are able to subsist very well 100% on pure light. So when I first came here as Aurora, as a walk-in, almost 23 years ago, and someone, I just wanted to say, because you guys were confused last month, my birthday, my physical body birthday is coming up this month on July 26th. And I've been here for like 23 years in my body as Aurora. But the times when I first came here, I thought like, oh, no problem. Like I'm in a body, I'm just going to eat light. And that I didn't know that you had to do more than just eat light because the body is a denser body in this world than I was used to, that you must also eat physicality food in order to grow your light body. So physicality food, or glucose, is another form of light. It is the end product of photosynthesis, which is a miracle that many people take for granted. This is everyone like mowing their lawn. They're like, stupid weeds, mowing the lawn, plants growing all over the place. I hate this. This ruins my Saturday. I wish I didn't have to do this. And I'm like, no, photosynthesis is a miracle. And the planets are taking light and turning it into matter in front of your mind. Like, this is really quite amazing. Although it's inconvenient to you, like whatever. People spraying Roundup because the dandelions are coming up in their sidewalk. I'm like, they're like, stupid miracles, take this poison. I'm like, no, they're miracles. But we can talk about like some amazing, charismatic people that have lived in our world, some of which are considered mythological and some of whom are, that were observed in modern times, not having to eat physical food, but being sustained very effectively through their spiritual practices. And one of them I've mentioned before, her name was Therese von Neumann. She lived in Bavaria, which is an area near Germany in the 1940s. So this was right during like Nazi Germany time. And supposedly Hitler was incredibly threatened by her presence, but couldn't do anything about her. And she was this little plump lady. And she used to spend her days 100% in devotion to her conception of what Christ is. So she was in the church. She was very much a member of the organized religion of Christian churches. And she would create these elaborate flower altars as an expression of her devotion to Christ. And she also was a stigmatic who had sympathetic bleeding on Fridays, remembering the pains of Christ on the cross. And all of this is documented. And I bring her up because for the last 25 years of her life, she only ate one Eucharist a day. And they watched her. This is like the 1940s. This isn't like 300 or 3,000 years ago. So they watched her. And they're like, yep, she's the real deal. How is this possible? And it is possible through a cognitive series of structures, mind structures, that allow a person to have the conception of what it is to be sustained on pure light. And some of her practice, obviously, was about being connected to the sun, but some of it was about being connected to her conception of what is divinity through her devotion to the figure that is the religious figure, Jesus Christ. So there's different aspects of this. I gotta tell you, you gotta mute yourself. I cannot deal. You have to mute yourself. It is the very worst thing to come into a meeting late and then also not to mute yourself. Sorry. The devotion that she had and the mental structures that she had and thought systems and belief systems are essential beyond what the physicality of either eating physical food, like one little tiny wafer is like 10 calories, can't live on that, but also the light that is in your environment. And she also lived in a time when there was a lot more light in her environment. And there are also other stories that are mostly apocryphal or mythological, mythologized, of different masters and yogis and sainted people, some of them from Asia, who were able to live either on no food or on minimal food. And so Therese von Neumann, she was active and well-formed. Some of these yogis, they're not active. They will just be like, this is my bush or tree. Like, I'm just going to sit underneath my tree for the next 50 years or so and not move very much. And they're also super skinny. They do not look very plump and well-fed. But there are also stories about people that have been able to transcend or semi-transcend the need for physicality, nourishment through their devotions. And these are like, you know, super athletes. But the important thing to comprehend is that what once in one generation, what is considered to be a superhuman effort becomes something that is normalized the more that other people are able to do it. So like running 100 miles, even 25 years ago, was considered a superhuman event. Now people do ultra marathons all the time. They run 100 miles on a weekend and then they go back to work on Monday. Like, it is not that superhuman anymore. A lot, or it's still very superhuman, but many more people have achieved that level of superhumanness. And that's because the envelope is constantly being expanded in what is possible through cognitive and neural pathways. The more that people believe in this capacity, the more it is exemplified, and the more it is exemplified, the more that you can believe in it. So there is definitely a pathway to being able to transform these physical bodies back into being pure light eaters and to totally abrogate the necessity of having to go to the food room, grocery store with magical pieces of paper, money, and buy things like apples and avocados. But this is exactly what I just did with my dog. We just went out for a nice walk, saw some friends, walked in the park, and I went to the food room and I bought my food for the day. I know. And so what is going on? And why are we not there yet? And one of the big answers to that is that this is what's going on. This stuff is what's going on. And it's, again, not just that that stuff is going on and that it exists in our world as an impediment to connecting effectively with the sun, but also there's this energetic cannibalism by very naughty people that are stealing your stash. Because it's not only that they might be stealing your biophotons and that which sustains you in terms of light, and it's not only that they might be causing great imbalances and diseases in your physicality body intentionally to destroy you, like things like cancer and other, deficiencies in the body, but that it is keeping you from information in order to keep you in a disempowered state, to keep you as peasants of consciousness, to keep you as those who are not empowered and cannot use your minds and your empowerment effectively, because eating light is about much more than just calories. It is about empowerment. Eating light is about how you get stuff done. It's about how you manifest things and how you make events happen in the world. And the pineal gland, as I pull up my notes here, has a lot to do with the expression of how you make things happen in the world. So wait, okay. I'm going to pull up my notes. I'm going to talk all about how you use your pineal gland to eat light and to make things happen in the world. But also, I want to get to this question and wonderful comment from Charlie B, who sent this to me. It's a great jumping off point for my discussion today about what I wrote in my notes. And I'm so pleased when people actually read my notes that I send out as part of my weekly invite to these meetings, that it's worth it. You know, we have this present level of difficulty in our world that I'm always referencing, but the basic black tuxedo, the outfit that I created 10 years ago in the original curriculum, it's always in style. It's always correct. But now you have to just contextualize all of that within the very great difficulties of what you face. You're trying to ascend from like a very, very difficult, disempowered position. So your pineal gland and your imagination are innately connected to the sun and to your ability to know and express and make things happen. All right. So Charlie B read my notes and he said this. It was in response to this part of my notes where I was talking about cognitive thought or verbalized thought equals friction equals entropy. And that the symptoms of a perfect flow of energy are thoughtlessness, not having any verbalized thoughts, being totally in the flow and in bliss, and your energy is flowing seamlessly. And that once you experience articulated thoughts, energy is dispersed across time, especially in terms of like grasping for or expecting the future or clinging to the past, that this dilutes the ability to manifest reality. In order to manifest reality, you have to more effectively be focused 100% with your consciousness in the moment now. So I'm talking about aligning your chakras and achieving a state of bliss, seamless integration of consciousness with higher consciousness in order to achieve nourishment from the sun, as opposed to not being in alignment, where the more energy you put into the chakras, the more friction and entropy and destabilization. Here's the key point. The ego verbalized consciousness mind is closing down the capacity to absorb nourishment directly. And also thought invaders, ego fragments that need healing or to go to entropy. And our mind, as we know it, is a blockage to ideas and a blockage to energy coming in, not a conduit to energy coming in. And in order to form the attenuation of consciousness, it is necessary to stop the talking mind, to close down that verbalized mind for a little while so that higher consciousness may come inside. Okay. So first of all, I hope that you're seeing that there is a direct analogy between the long-term installation that you've been dealing with, the human talking verbalized mind, and this stuff. It used to be just your human verbalized mind and all of those thought invaders, consciousness limiters that were cultural, not technological, and maybe neurocognitive that have been placed inside of you. But now you're also facing this stuff that is technological. This stuff inside of you doesn't just sit there, shut up like it should. Has a big giant mouth. It has a big giant loud garbage mouth. And I hope you can tell from my expression on my face that it's horrible. And it says the worst things, the worst garbage thoughts, the most unworthy thoughts. It speaks nonsense. It says erroneous, it is false light, erroneous information, distracting information, untruthful information, an untruthful interpretation of genuine information, and hallucination or fabrication of stuff that cannot even be considered information. It is the worst type of insane mind violator that it is possible to experience. So in this world right now where you are trying to ascend, you not only face the challenges of trying to quiet down the verbalized mind that has been installed in humanity a long time ago as a consciousness limiter, but and also you are having to face this newer contraption that inserts itself into your language centers of your brain and then talks and talks and talks, saying the most ridiculous things as an intentional way of being able to prevent you from connecting to the sun and to pure light, and as an intentional way of siphoning energy off of you. Synthetic telepathy. And who makes this synthetic telepathy? I tell you this all the time, guys. Those towers didn't erect themselves. So we really need to talk about this, because although you can say, okay, so there's a bunch of orbs that fly around to the sky and they poop out sky poops, right? and they poop out white aerosols, and those white aerosols go to people. If it were just that, that would be one thing. That was what it was like in 2014 or so. We don't just have sky poops pooping out little turds into your mind. We also have these amazing towers that were erected and that were turned on and energized during the worldwide health crisis that you know of from 2020 under the regime of the guy who's currently running for president again, which is not a good thing. Because they had you stuck inside, quivering away, rocking back and forth, fearing microbes. They're like, well, these guys are fearing microbes. Let's erect these consciousness reduction towers. Who did that? Not the little tiny sky poops. Little tiny sky poops did not build infrastructure in the world. Some embodied humans had to build infrastructure in the world. This is me being silly. Who could have built that infrastructure in the world? Well, if I return to my whiteboard, I'll show you. Who built those towers? Press a button. Who built those towers? Who built those towers? The answer is, where's the pen? Get a color. Answer is, get a bright color you can actually see. This guy built those towers. This guy who's full of false light. This guy who's full of the blue empowerment crystals. This guy who feeds off of all of these guys over here and wants to feed off of and diminish this person over here. That's who built the towers. Somebody had to put up that telecommunications infrastructure. Someone had to actually build the consciousness reduction frequency prison. Somebody had to actually put up those satellites. Who put up those satellites? This guy did. And all the guys that are like him. They're at this point not even defined as human. They are a parasite or an assault feeding off of other humans, preventing you from reaching your spiritual attainment and utilizing not only your biophotons, but your tax dollars or your bureaucratic corporate budget to erect consciousness reduction hardware. Sorry, I get upset when I talk about this stuff. If I'm making a face, I'm upset about this crap face. But to get to Charlie's question, so after talking about and contextualizing all of that, he says this. So Charlie B is a software engineer. He says, since so much of my world is thinking, quote unquote, does this mean I've blocked myself from higher sensing and higher consciousness? In engineering, we try to do, quote unquote, egoless thinking, where we see many possibilities and many narratives and remain unattached to all of them until a direction is finally selected. This is a trained skill. Is this not a transferable skill for post-ascension? So this is a great question that I really respect very much. So thank you for sharing that question and wonderment with us. Here's my answer, that the mind state that you know as thinking in your daily analytical mind, and that you probably apply to most of your software engineering, is not the true mind, is mostly the implanted mind or a technological convenience or a tool that is used to be able to navigate the world of tools and technology by humans that innately think in a different way. And that when you transcend that mind that's located at the solar plexus, and you activate instead the higher faculties, which are nonverbal and non-intellectual, your thought patterns exist differently. It doesn't mean that you don't think, but it means that you perceive and have different cognitive events. So the way that you might presently be approaching a problem solving or generation or any kind of thing that you're trying to do in your life is through a form of analysis and building blocks. And in using building blocks, it's like here's the foundation, and the next brick goes on top, and the next brick goes on top, and the next brick goes on top. And these are kind of like logic bricks, like this is an assertion, and here's the next assertion, and here's the next assertion, and the next assertion, and they all kind of just stack up in that way. And that this is a semi-effective way of reaching a goal that can be either comprehending something or creating something. But that there is a completely different way of thinking that from your present cognitive ability would be called making an intuitive leap. And that is how insight works, where there is not this supportive structure of bricks carefully stacked up on top of each one another in order to get to that moment of realization. There's your starting point here and simply the intuitive leap to the conclusion up here. And there's no supportive structure between those two things. And it is just simply a deep knowing and an alignment with that truth of consciousness. And there's also no negotiation. Now, Charlie B, I'm telepathic, and I can kind of sense you inwardly being like this, kind of like inwardly blinking, like, what? What? I'm like, well, that's exactly right. Because you're going to wonder, like, well, how do you know if you're right? How do you know if you're wrong? And how do you this and how do you that? It's very different than that. It is simply a deep inner knowing. And later on, an analytical mind might assess your cognitive leap all the way up to the top brick and might be like, oh, is it because of this? And fill in the blanks this way. Nope, it wasn't because of that. It's because of this, fill in the blanks this way. Nope, it wasn't because of that. Maybe it was because of this. Try to analyze and find the right combination of thought structures that led you to that conclusion. But all of that is like retro-engineering, the intuitive leap, which is also what a lot of inventors who are considered geniuses make those intuitive leaps. People like Tesla or Da Vinci, where they really did an assessment of all of the information that is available to them. That's like the ocean of information down here. And then they just jumped up to this point up here. And there was really not a carefully constructed ladder of supporting assertions that went all the way up there. They simply did it. And then, something later on, everyone found out like, wow, those guys were right. How did they know? How did they know that they were right? They were not right according to an intellectual integument of supporting assertions. They were simply right. And that is what the mind of divinity, true mind of God, is like. It's not a logic argument. It's not a rhetoric. I think that maybe from school and a couple of other places, people are used to rhetoric and the rhetorical style where you're like, I assert this, and I assert this because of this, and this. And then clearly, here's my pie chart, this, and this, and here's my conclusion. Thank you very much. This is different. This is more of just stating, here's the truth, mic drop. That's it. And it's very different because like clearly in academia and in the corporate world, that people have a lot invested in what is going to be the truth. Like if you're going to build a big giant infrastructure, a big giant computer system, invest a lot of money, whatever it is, you want to make sure you're investing in the right thing, right? And so people feel the need to analyze. The analytical intellect is in many ways assuaging them and making them feel better or giving them like a sense of security, like they're there, you're thinking the right thoughts, you're on the right track, you're doing the right thing. But really, those are comforts that are required for when people are navigating with this not effective, but only through this viewpoint of the daily waking intellect. But the truth is, we are really meant to navigate the world using our highest faculties, using our highest levels of insight. And when you're in those highest levels of insight, you are completely guided by the sun and the stars and highest consciousness to the direct answer of truth of all the things that you're thinking about and wondering about. So your eye of insight, your inner eye, your mind's eye, your tendril of attention, these are all kind of synonymous with this ability to quest and to learn. This aperture is what you use to ingest light and learn things from, but it's also what you use to construct reality. To emphasize again, reiterate, your higher faculties are what you use to ingest light. They are also what you use to construct reality. And you're constructing reality through your system of cognitive interpretation of the raw waveforms of higher dimensional data that are in existence. So you are taking the potentials of time and then organizing them into a sensory experience through your higher faculties. When you look at that world, the world through that top-down viewpoint, because you have been going like from the bottom up, like a stalagmite going from the bottom up, coming up from like the physical realm, the emotional realm, the intellectual realm. Now we're going to see what's truthful. And we're going to do experiments, mix things together in flasks and find out what's truthful. That is from the bottoms up, building things from first principles approach. But there's another approach that is from the top down, from the levels of pure inspiration that just says, this is the truth. This is the utmost truth of reality. And then it filters through the potentials of time, timelines, and possibilities. And then it is exemplified through your anthropomorphic filter as a human-based experience. That's the top-down experience. When you're like, ah, yes, I'm experiencing this now because it is the exemplification of time potentials. That you see and interpret the world in a very, very different way. And when you're looking at things in that way, it is not it's not a materialistic viewpoint. So what we're talking about is transcending the limits of the materialistic viewpoint that is also synonymous with and the same as that plodding intellectual approach that says proposal A, proposal B, proposal C, proposal D, conclusion E over here, and the methodical building. And people who are into science and methodology, they're like, but I like my methods. I like my methodology, and I like consistently thinking about things and then building thought structures and then reaching the pinnacle of my pyramid. And you can't just have a pinnacle of the pyramid there floating with nothing underneath it. And I'm like, I comprehend where you're coming from. But from my viewpoint, it's not just floating there with nothing underneath it. It literally comes from, if this is the pinnacle of the pyramid, it comes from something that's even higher than the pyramid, which is the ultimate source of empirical truth. And there is an ultimate source of empirical truth that would be considered the divine mind, and that divine mind or God's presence is circulated or profuses through pure light, stars, the galactic center, black holes, larger superstructures of consciousness in reality, and that those larger superstructures of consciousness are unarguably truthful. They are calibrated towards truth. How can you tell? Because they exist. Because in a pristine world, something can only exist if it is in a state of truth, because truth represents this type of perfect polygonal structure. It's kind of like the house is a square or a cube. It stands up because it has 90-degree angles. We know it has 90-degree angles because it's standing up. And if it didn't have those correct angles, the whole entire thing would shift and fall down. So it's like reality exists. Stars exist. These larger galactic superstructures exist, and they exist because they're doing something right. They are in the correct polygonal form or topological form, this shape. They're in the correct shape to be in existence. And so we don't have to argue with them. You're like, hey, are you allowed to exist? You're like, I'm allowed to exist. I'm the right shape. Look at me. And it's a different way of even determining the allocation of what is correct and what is allowed to exist. And then we get our information from there. So even in your own light body, information comes from the highest center and then comes inward through your human octave and reaches your higher faculties, but has to go on a long journey to be able to stimulate your daily waking intellect. The information or the force of consciousness is so strong and so intense that if it went directly to your intellect would be incinerated and your ego would be incinerated. This is what would happen if you went directly into the sun. So, this is how I talk about how experts do star travel. If you went directly into the sun, your non-eternal aspects of self, your temporal ego, would or will be incinerated or energized to the point of non-existence. Because once they get revved up, they're like, I don't actually exist. But these aspects of yourself do exist, your higher faculties and your eternal aspects of self. So what happens in your energy body is, let's pull up my next prepared slide for class, energy circulates inward from the highest levels to reach your daily waking intellect without incinerating you. Let's get the annotation. If this is the source of everything, and that is in the sun, that has to go as an impulse inward through your crown, through your inner eye, through your communication, and through your heart center to reach your daily waking intellect here. And every time it does, it gets diluted. Truth gets diluted and it gets to be less strong and less powerful so that it will not completely overwhelm and destabilize this area of your body as you are attempting to perceive and know what is truthful in the world. Princess Cheeky just woke up, but she comes, we're already ready. I've already got food in her dish. I've already bribed her before class, so we won't have an interruption. But you might also ask, because I can kind of sometimes sense some skeptical questions, which are fine, because this is also like part of what the learning process is like. So sometimes your mind and your daily waking intellect might be skeptical, be like, well, why do we even need a daily waking intellect? Snap at all. If it's so like distorted, holding me back, a limitation, and it's just going to get incinerated by the sun. Why do I need this thing anyway? And the answer is the truth is you don't. The truth is you don't, but everyone else around you has one. Everybody's got one. And that means that if you don't have one, you're at a disadvantage because your ego is your interface to be able to talk with other people. And if you don't have an ego, it means that you have universal consciousness and an enormous amount of energy and insight and wisdom on a galactic impersonal scale, but that you are not able to advocate for yourself or to interface effectively with other people. So there are many, many amazing people in your world right now who are nonverbal, and they might be tiny children or they might be what you call developmentally disabled, but they don't have ego, intellect, and articulation and languaging, and they are looked at as diminished participants in your society. And they might contain secrets of the universe, but they can't actually put them into words, and they can't actually effectively connect what they have on an internal level to the world outside of them. So your ego is an interface. You can also think of it as a plug. Like, I just want to hold up like any plug that I have in my, many electronics around here. A plug that you use to plug into something. Your ego is like the plug that you use to plug into community. And if you don't have an ego, it makes it that much harder for you to plug into and interface with other humans, all of whom have egos that have been developed for this purpose of having an interface. So language is an interface and ego is an interface. And you can look at it as something that is effective for the time that you need it. It's like having an adapter. If you're from the United States and you visit Europe and you want to use your hair dryer or your electric shaver, you will need an adapter to plug in to the wall. You will also probably need to learn the language if they don't speak English there. So in coming here, I had to develop an interface. My interface is named Aurora. But Aurora here is not exactly the same as who I am, Aurora, on a galactic scale. But I had to learn languaging, and I had to develop what is my social presence here. That means, what do I look like? How do I dress? What is my choice of words? What are my choice of words? What's my style? How do I do things? All of those are temporal because they are in response to this cultural paradigm. So I wear my hair like this in response to this cultural paradigm. I wear this shirt in response to this cultural paradigm because these things most closely represent the truth of my being, but they're not eternal. So I won't have this hairstyle eternally when I fly through the sun. Got to be ready to release the aspects that are not eternal. But while you are here, utilize them and they're utilized effectively. So circling back now, so that there's like just a nice completion in talking to Charlie B's question of wonderment. You're wondering what's going to happen when you fly through the sun, and will all of the skills that you've spent a lifetime developing in terms of your cognitive abilities, will they still be relevant? Did you invest wisely, or did you invest in a bunch of stuff that's going to turn out to be nonsense later? And the answer is you invested wisely in tools that serve you well in your present level of incarnation. But that at a certain point, all of us are going to enter into a completely recontextualized reality where we will not be communicating or navigating according to the daily waking human intellect. We'll be perceiving and comprehending and communicating, utilizing the higher faculties. And some of what you love about the analytical world and computer programming will translate well. The sense of creating a system that has structural integrity will translate very well. That is good, because what I do on my highest level of cognition is create and participate in systems that have good structural integrity. Like they fit together. They don't have inner conflict. The assertions are like math, like 1 + 1 = 2. It doesn't sometimes equal 3. It doesn't sometimes equal 4.5. It always equals 2. And so, like, in my paintings, if you look around my studio, a 2-inch circle is always dark blue. And I just made that consistent throughout all of the things and all of the work that I do. And when you get to these levels of the higher faculties, there's a consistency across all levels of being. So that means it's truthful for a microbe, it's truthful for a human, it's truthful for the planet, it's truthful for a star. And we're talking about time structures, things that are on an abstract level like this, that are truthful for all of these different types of organisms or levels of consciousness. And there's not assertions or like a monopoly game. Like sometimes it's like this, and sometimes the rules change, they're like this, and sometimes they're like this, and sometimes they're like this. The rules are not whimsical and they're not capricious. They're very solid, and there's no double standards. And so all the things that you might love and respect about computer programming, problem solving, and working within the parameters of a system will translate to a system that is really a perfect divine mind system that is even better than and even more fun and satisfying than even your greatest supercomputer on this planet. But navigating within and being creative within that system is not an analytical activity and is not an intellectual activity. Analytical intellect is down here at this level. So it is at the level of deep knowing. So the only way that I can describe this is like, if you're an athlete and or whatever, how can I describe this in the best way? I wouldn't even use an analogy. So for myself, when I do my higher level cognitive processing and calculations, I don't actually do like 1 + 1 = 2, and then add 3, carry 4. But like I'm not doing my calculations like that. I perceive the totality of the pattern of what is going on, and then I perceive the truth of that pattern, and then I act within that pattern. So to go back to analogy, it's kind of like if you're doing sports, whatever, some kind of a thing like football. There's lots of different players on the football field, and everybody's running in all these different directions, and you have to figure out like, somehow I have to get myself and the ball over there, but there's all these different variables that are happening, or chess, or whatever is the game that you're playing. And you have to figure out, how do I move me plus the ball to where I need to get to for my goal? amidst all these variables. And you don't sit there as a football player, like, you take out my paper and pencil. Wait. Everybody wait. Put down the ball. I need paper, pencil, and I need to figure this out. No, you don't do it in that way. You do it based on a feeling and an embodiment. What some humans would call an instinct, but instinct is actually even lower than your intellect here. Instinct is all the way down here in your belly down here, which is part of in this level of insight. Instinct, intuition at the level of emotion is part of it. But then also what's part of it is this connection to higher consciousness, where you're simply guided by higher consciousness to know which direction you need to go. So you might say, oh, that athlete just intuitively knew, jump to the left and avoid this guy, and then run over here, and then jump over this guy, and then you'll meet your goal. But it was actually not a lower instinct level of navigating reality. It was actually a higher level of navigating reality. The animals do this all the time, but humans with their hubris at the level of the intellect think like, oh, those silly animals are just guided by instinct. Like they're just magically guided by instinct. It's lower than intellect. Like they don't even know 1 + 1 = 2. But somehow they are like, monarch butterflies are flying all across North America and making it to their mating grounds and their hibernation grounds in Mexico. But they're just doing it through stupid instinct. They don't even analytically know what they're doing. Like, no, guys, no, that is not what's happening. They are guided by their higher level of faculties. And same thing with dolphins swimming through the ocean, or whales that are going on their giant migrations. So migration patterns, mating patterns, even plants. Plants have to know how much water am I going to get this year? Plants have to have a water budget where they're like, are we going to get a lot of water? If we're going to get a lot of water, if we're rich with water, I'm going to grow a lot of leaves. If we're going to have a drought, I cannot sustain a lot of leaves. How does it know? Does it intellectually assess? Does it look at the Weather Channel and say, maybe I should grow 5 leaves? No, maybe I should grow 10 leaves this year. No, it does not go according to the Weather Channel. It goes according to the higher faculties connection to the sun and the stars. So it's actually a huge empowerment in terms of the ability to survive, to navigate reality, to know what is happening on the playing field of life, to be able to connect directly to the sun and the stars. And when I talk about the sun and the stars, you are thinking on a human level, probably like, oh, those are those bright, shiny things in the sky. They are, but I'm also talking about what they exemplify, which is the world of pure light, which is a world of pure information. So you see optical light in the sky. There's a giant ball of consciousness glowing in the sky. And at night, you see tiny pinpricks of consciousness in the sky, making all these amazing patterns. But what you're really talking about when you talk about your connection to the sun and the stars is a connection to the world of pure light, of things that are moving fast. Light moves fast, much faster than matter, of the world of non-tangibility. It is not tangible. You cannot put light on a scale. Say, how many kilograms does it weigh? Does not weigh kilograms. It is not tangible. So your connection to the sun, when I talk about getting energy from the sun, is your connection to pure light. So even if the sun isn't in the sky, if it's blocked by clouds, by aerosols, or if it's on the other side of the earth, and don't get me started on flat earth theory, all right? Just don't get me started because I will rant. But if it is not optically visible to you, you can still connect with the sun and get all of the information and sustenance and energy that you need to be able to be co-creating and generating reality. And you do that through flying rainbow lasagna. So when I flying rainbow lasagna in my original class from 10 years ago, I talk about actually creating this shape. Let's go through this as an exercise between yourself and the sun right now. So the first thing is to envision these energy centers, going back to this very well-known etching that I have here. You can envision any of these points as being your epicenter. It can be in here, the center of your head. It can be in here, the center of your chest. But whatever it is, that's going to be the point of where you make the lasagna. And then here's the sun. Get a sun color. Hold on. Here's the sun, like a child. And when you fly in rainbow lasagna, what you're going to do is you're going to connect this singularity dot that is in the sun with this singularity dot that is inside of you. Be again in the center of your head, or it can be in the center of your heart. Either of these are acceptable envisionments. But what you're going to envision is that that singularity is jumping back and forth between you very fast. And as that singularity jumps back and forth, it creates the waveform that is known as the flying rainbow lasagna, where one pointed part is pointing towards you and one pointed part is pointing towards the sun. And you do this jumping back and forth motion 8 times. So I'll go back to my face so that you can get a sense of what I'm talking about here. So if I have this envisioned on my heart, I have singularity, which is the central convergence point of this time apparatus here, where all the timelines come together. That singularity, I know that it is in me, and I know that it is also in the sun. I also know that it is at the center of all matter. It is at the center of every single atom. It is at the center of every photon. So I can fly in rainbow lasagna with the sun as a big giant collection of photonic energy. I can also fly in rainbow lasagna with a photon. Path of light stuff, and I always say I'm going to restart path of light class. But here's what you need to know. Every single photon contains the truth of all light everywhere. Can I even draw that for you? See if I can draw it for you. Every single photon contains the truth of all light everywhere. Let's do a new whiteboard. All right. Never tried to draw this before. First, let's draw a photon. All right. So this, let's say, is a super exaggerated photon. And then let's say that it's like looking downward into it, like looking down into a spiral. Like, we're going to look into it, down into its core. And if we amplify outward, what do we see when we look down into its core? Here's like the magnified version. What do we see? See every single other, these are supposed to be little dots of light, every single other photon of light that has ever existed is down within its core. Every single other photon. And what if I went inside of this photon? What would be inside of here? If I looked inside of here, what would be inside of there? Every single photon. Here it is. Here's the next amplification. Inside of there is every single photon. Every single photon. Every single piece of light. Every single piece of information that has ever existed is inside of that one photon. Okay. When I'm going to do flying rainbow lasagna with myself and the sun, I envision that singularity point that is inside of me is no space away from me. So I just said you envision it as jumping to the sun. The sun is 93 million miles away. It is far in space. And what we're trying to do is to cognitively retrain ourselves to conceive that the sun is not far at all, that it is right here. Instead of this being my hand as 93 million miles long, I bend it and fold it so that it is no space away. And that is how I really am changing the dynamic of being able to connect to the sun. I would say for the beginning of this exercise, you can envision it as jumping back and forth, right? Where you have the point that is inside of you and the point that is external to you. And then as you jump back and forth, you create one of these swooping shapes. So look, I jumped away from me and I created this swooping shape. Then I jumped towards me and I created this swooping shape. Then I jumped away from me, I created this. I jumped towards me, I created this. We're going to do 8 jumps back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, that's beginner. At a certain point, this will be so fast. It will be like this. The buzzing bee. So fast. And it almost becomes blurred or indistinct, where you cannot even see the individual jumping because it's happening so fast. And this is also spinning around at the same time that you are doing this jumping back and forth motion. That activity is hugely empowering in that it allows you to surmount seemingly insurmountable obstacles in connecting with the source of light, the source of consciousness. That if there is an optical impediment, like a cloud or an aerosol, that you're like, I'd love to connect with the sun, but I just can't because there's something in the way, you would jump up and over it, or you would bring that destination to you and bypass the obstacle. The obstacle is here, bending and folding the fabric of space-time so that I don't have to jump very far at all. And destination is right there with me. What you end up doing is creating an overlapping of the sun that is outside of you and the sun that is inside. Have a sun that is inside of you. And it is literally right at the top of your spine, where your head connects to your spine, and deep within your head, kind of close to where your pineal gland is, but not exactly synonymous with that. And you have a sun that is in there. The first word that I have written here has been assaulting that area of everybody's anatomy, has been surrounding it and besieging it and making it very, very difficult for you to cognitively connect with that sun. So you have a diminishment of the optical light and the connection between yourself and the sun that appears external in the daily sky. And you also have a diminishment of the internal connection of your cognitive state to the sun or the source of light that is within. When these diminishments are happening, what it means is that you're not able to manifest reality effectively. So this is not just like when parasites like, I'll eat your blood or I'll eat your electrons. That's bad enough. These are directed or very, very intentional ways of attacking your ability to manifest reality, because it's your interrelationship with the sun, with the external sun and the inner sun, which at a certain point cognitively, you will just not make a distinction between these two things at all. That gives you the power to create reality. So that also means like solar flares that are happening in what appears to be the external sun are actually happening internally. And we are having lots and lots of wonderful solar activity right now. We are having solar flares and coronal mass ejections. Both of these things. So the materialistic viewpoint looks at the sun in the sky and says, oh yeah, the sun just gave off a bunch of radiation. And it's like, yep, that's an X-class flare. Or the sun just burped out a bunch of particles. And like, yep, that's a coronal mass ejection. Both of those things are cognitive events that are happening with the sun emitting time structures. And the time structures are directly related to what you're experiencing in terms of your cognitive awareness and your flight through time, the events that you're experiencing. So when you see and know that there are X-class flares going off, things like that, like definitely celebrate, because all of this means that the sun is like, oh, look, I am responding to your life situation. So you're in a dynamic partnership with the sun. In fact, let me get to my notes so that I'm not missing stuff on here. Wait, let me read a little bit more from my notes. Oh, and I'm going to go to my notes, but I also want to go. Charlie B says, thank you for that. It's an excellent answer. We engineers even quote unquote know that stacked logic assertions are ultimately fallible and subject to non-truth drift. We have even books on how to lie with statistics. Yes, very helpful answer. Thank you. And the top-down driven by higher insight is absolutely a useful and practical way to think about it. Good, fantastic. And of course, it seems much easier to take responsibility for one's creation when operating from top-down driven by higher insight. Oh my goodness, yes. The necessity of taking responsibility, because this is big. Where do ideas come from? And are all ideas good ideas? Are all ideas things that we should do, put into motion, embody, or build? Or are some ideas terrible ideas? The answer is some ideas are terrible ideas. These things in our world, these are terrible ideas. These should never have been built. These are like a plague that should never have been built, or any kind of bioweapon that has escaped from the factory, or any kind of whatever, nuclear waste or something like that. Like, these are all terrible ideas. They're all ideas that came to someone. Someone had the idea to do that, and somebody made it happen. Somebody polluted our world by making that stuff happen. And when we look at these guys over here, this is what I want to show you. Here, this. I have to press a button. I don't know. It's very complex. But I just want to go to this guy over here. No, not that one. Wrong one. No, stop. Oh my God. I don't even know what is happening right now. Let's just take a deep breath and try it again. This one. This one. I can still remember what I'm trying to say. Terrible ideas on the topic of acting out terrible ideas. Who acts out terrible ideas? This guy does over here. This guy does. These blue crystals and this wetware that is in this guy over here means that he is picking up on idea structures that don't necessarily come from the sun over here. I need to have like a totally different something to be able to show that there is something else that is emitting ideas. So this is like my doo-doo color. Here's like some crapola doo-doo over here. This guy is getting his ideas from crapola doo-doo. And the doo-doo tells him what to do. And then he's like, that sounds like a great idea. I think I'll do it. You understand? Like, he's not getting, here's like a beautiful purple idea that comes in through the top of his brain from the sun and the stars. He's like, no, I don't want that. That's a beautiful idea that will help a lot of people. I don't want that. I want this. I want this crappy idea. I want to do this idea that's going to hurt a lot of people. Like the idea of feeding off of this guy who's a peasant over here. Yeah, I want the idea of actually creating this large, small scale infrastructure, or I should say pervasive small scale infrastructure. It's going to go inside of everybody's neurology. It's going to falsely elevate me, give me a lot of power and energy and ability to make things happen in the world, but it's totally going to kill this guy of cancer and, you know, hurt these other people over here and destroy the fabric of space-time. That's going to be a great idea. That's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea because, like I said, it destroys and destabilizes the fabric of space-time. Okay. So when you get to these levels that I'm talking about, you recognize the interconnectedness of all life. And you're like, oh, I just got this idea from the sun and the stars. That is my mandate or my ordinance. I'm ordained to do something behaviorally, encouraged to do a thing. I get an idea and I'm behaviorally encouraged to do a thing. And that thing is not just about me. It's about how my actions affect the entire world. You're in an ecosystem of consciousness. Those naughty people that are doing these things that are harming everyone else, they're acting exactly like cancer cells. Cancer cells do not follow the signals that say what to do that is good for the health of the entire body. They are rogue cells that decide to do what is good for me. Take a lot of resources, use up a lot of energy, and make a lot of poops and doo-doos and hurt the body metabolically. That's exactly what these members of your society are doing. So some of it is putting things into technological sorry, I'm not finding the right words. Efforts like projects. So cancer builds stuff in your body that's not good for the body. Some of the things that are not good ideas are the ideas to build technological items that are not good for the body, not good for your planet. Factories, infrastructure, computer systems, the AI, that's not good for your planet. And they're doing it anyway. Where are they getting these poop crapola ideas from? They're not getting it from the sun. I'm telling you, the sun is not telling anyone. I want you to sit down and create a horrible, monstrous AI that's going to threaten the fabric of space-time. No, the sun is not telling anyone to do that. So where is that idea coming from? It is coming from some other malevolent and erroneous source. False light. false light. So again, when I did my sun gazing this morning, so I'm outside with my dog, just kind of sniffing around the garden. I'm doing my sun gazing, and I'm like, what am I going to talk about in my class today? Because I always go over my notes, and I always consider my lecture and how I'm going to fine tune it in response to our present levels of difficulty. And I was like, well, I have to frame this as a struggle between false light and real light. Because what you're trying to do as a spiritual aspirant is to eat light, to eat information, to accrete light, to get smarter, to learn more, to become more wise and more integrated into truthfulness. Information is truth, but you are in a world that is inundated by false light, which is not truthful, which is nonsense. Some of it is non-informational, some of it is antithetical to information or false. It is 100% false. Some of it is misguided, some of it is distorted, some of it contains partial truth. And here you are trying to come of age and comprehend and make sense of the world and be empowered in a world that is full of false light. What you're supposed to do is have a rapport with the sun where you ingest truth and then emit truth back to the sun. And it's supposed to be a beautiful biofeedback world where you're constantly fine-tuning the expressed reality that you inhabit through this interactivity and rapport with the sun. So the sun is like, I'm intending to emit blah, blah, blah series of events, potentials. And you get those events and potentials as waveforms. And then you express them through your human filter as behaviors and words and things that you do with your body or structures that you build. And then you see how close you are to the accuracy of what the sun has sent out. And you send it back to the sun. And the sun is like, oh, good job. Like we just did a little jam session there. I sent this out and you sent this back to me. This part sounds good and this part sounds bad. So let's change this, this, and this. And now let's do it again. And that's the next day. And that's this beautiful rapport that is supposed to happen. So I'm just going to emphasize this again and go back to my notes. But your higher faculties, specifically your pineal gland, it's the aperture through which you perceive and receive reality, but it's also the tool that you use to build, construct, generate, and sustain reality. Let me go back to my notes. Hold on a minute here. Okay. With sun gazing, what we are doing is cultivating the non-physical aperture through which a person may perceive reality and ingest light. This is big. Cultivate this aperture to take it and make it stronger and bring it to greater levels of capacitation. So I told you, sometimes my ability to sun gaze has been super strong and really great. And sometimes it has not been super strong and not really great. And none of this has to do with my worth as a human being or how advanced I am as a consciousness. I've been a worthwhile person with advanced consciousness the whole entire time. But sometimes it has been very difficult for me to do my sun gazing. Perhaps it might have been because of the weather, or perhaps it might have been because of technology. Here's a great example. When I lived in the horrific, nightmarish hell realm known as San Diego, I thought, I'm going to be one block from the beach. I'm going to do lots of sun gazing. And I did almost no sun gazing. Do you know why? It wasn't because I was optically blocked from the sun. Literally, the sun was right there. All I had to do was walk across the street. There's the beach. There's the sun setting across the ocean almost every day. But you know what else was there? A ton of frequency disrupting infrastructure. And the frequency disrupting infrastructure made it almost impossible for me to send out my tendril of awareness to touch on the sun. So the optical availability of the sun mattered nothing in a circumstance that was full of frequency poops and doo-doos, that was like a sewer garbage dump that made it almost impossible for me to do the energy body work, actually receiving those frequencies. So you must cultivate your higher faculties. And sometimes it's easier, some circumstances or environments make it easier to do these cultivations than others. So living in a 5G environment makes it very, very difficult to do these cultivations. And that's a large part of our world right now. It's not by accident. None of this is by accident. And just to make it very, very clear, that 5G didn't just erect itself. Little tiny particles from the sky did not erect 5G infrastructure in San Diego. Two-armed, two-legged humanoid bodies did so, kind that are filled with false light. The kind that think that that is a good idea to do that. So now you start to comprehend that we really do have not only a hierarchy or a class system or a caste system, but we also have competing agendae that are really completely antithetical to one another. Consciousness reduction agenda, diminishment of ability to connect to the sun agenda, and then the agenda where you're building your light body where the sun is everything. That's me. For me, access to light and the ability to utilize and build my light body is everything. You can also say building my energy field. What matters the most to me? Is it earning money in the world? No. What matters most to me is getting more light, becoming more light. And that really equates to, I don't know what the word is, becomes the equivalent of accelerating and getting faster. My physical body getting faster through the ingestion of pure light and through exposure to pure light. And so in order to get faster and reach light speed and beyond, it is necessary to do both your sun gazing, to connect effectively to the sun and the stars, and then also talk physical food. Of course, I eat physical food. Oh, did I not talk enough about false light, false ascension people in this world? Because there is a whole agenda from the military industrial complex and those who would like to totally destroy you and who have a very, antithetical agenda, against real light, to set up some people as false light gurus who do not they haven't genuinely earned their charismas, like Therese von Neumann and some of these masters from the world of Asia, but are instead themselves filled with false light. So the word at the top of my list here in these false gurus, these black fibers have assembled these false crystals that are a home for the false light specks. They're kind of like quantum dots. Those false light specks, I jokingly call them the pickles of the dead. Just have to see that show in order to know what I'm talking about. But these are consciousness residues of those who did not die well. They're not pooties stuck in the membrane of death. They're little tiny specks of consciousness that are looking to invade and inhabit a physicality structure. And they need to go to entropy because this is a total criminal act that they should not be invading and inhabiting your infrastructure. They should face the music and be who and what they are. But, I drew for you that picture of the elevated person in this caste system who has welcomed these technological false light specks inside of themselves. And they might be achieving various levels of elevation as a result. Like they might be having a better job, getting more money, getting more notoriety, or getting paid somehow by the AI system. Whatever, you don't want quantum financial system. Don't want quantum financial system. You don't want quantum financial system for a lot of reasons. Namely, if you've ever tried to just even log in to your silly Bitcoin account or whatever, and all these things, it's like, this password doesn't work, but I know I put in the right password. And then you have to do this two-factor authentication here. Then you have to do this, and then you have to jump through this hoop and jump through this hoop here, and all of this and all of this. Like, all of that should give you a taste of how, you don't want this machine mind to be determining whether or not you have access to your wealth, because it will F with you. And autocorrect. These are just simple algorithms that are supposed to make your life easier. The word "the" is THE. It is never TEH. Why does autocorrect not know that? And I've used it for years. Why has it not learned and accurately calibrated to the English language? It's incomprehensible. I'm trying to say the AI that you presently have available to you is so unbelievably flawed and inadequate that you would be very, very foolish if you put into its hands any level of responsibility, especially regarding your personal finances, especially regarding access to magical pieces of paper so you can get into the food room, because you're not at the level of eating pure light yet, and you're going to have to get some groceries, and you don't want the AI to determine whether you're quote unquote a good enough person to be allowed to access your bank account and buy some FOOD at the store, right? Sorry, that's how I spell it out for my dog, FOOD. You don't want AI to be doing surgery. You don't want it to be doing brain surgery. You don't want it to be making choices about nuclear war. Like, it's terrible. It makes terrible choices. It is not trustworthy. It is not reliable. You don't want it to do these things. So basically, you do not want to have to crawl and beg on your knees and say, please, oh, please, may I access my bank accounts? May I please have this? That's what quantum financial system is. But right now, what you have is an unspoken quantum financial system, where you have an AI, part of which is human-based, part of which is otherworldly, and that's exactly what I've been drawing for you, that has been making determinants about who is worthy of receiving resources. And it determines that you're worthy of receiving resources if you're in alignment with its agenda. You align with the AI regime, its agenda, you will be given resources. In a quantum financial system, you are considered a domesticated animal, and you are a good dog. You will get kibble in your dog dish if you please your master. It's an AI. And if you speak against it, or if you do the wrong thing, then it will not feed you, it will not take care of you. And you don't want to be in that position where something that is not human and does not have a good value system might suddenly decide that you're persona non grata and it's not going to feed you. And when I say it's not human, it doesn't have a good value system. You know, those guys that are full of little tiny blue specks, and they are cannibalizing and drawing energy non-consensually off of the rest of the people that are here, that they treat as peasants, and they try to give them cancer and all sorts of different things like that. That is exemplary of their very, very poor value system. They have no compunction against feeding off others. They have no compunction about diminishing others. They have no sense of justice, no sense of fairness. They are truly like barbarians who believe might makes right, do whatever you want to do. He who has the gold makes the rules. You know, only the strong shall survive. There's no compassion there. There is no genuine caring about others. It is a complete antithesis of what ascension is, because in ascension, where everybody gets their own divine connection to the sun, and everybody's receiving their information and their unique nutritional profile of ideas and energy that comes to them directly from the sun, there's also an enormous amount of caring and responsibility to the collective. And you balance out responsibility to self versus responsibility to the collective. And these things that I'm highly critical of are people or organisms or computer systems that have decided that they have zero responsibility to the collective, and they have 100% responsibility to themselves. They only care about feeding and sustaining themselves at the expense of others. And you are the others. At the expense of you, and at the expense of your true spiritual attainment, and at the expense of your true ascension experience. Because your ascension experience, when it is truthful, does not happen in a contextless void. It's like telepathy. It happens in a concert with many, many other people. So I'm a musician. I play music on my own all the time. But it's very, very different when you're able to actually play with the band, a different musical experience. In spiritual attainment and in telepathy, you're supposed to become telepathic with your fellow humans, dogs, cats, dolphins, microbes, trees, planet herself. You're supposed to be in the band. You're supposed to be learning the lessons of what it is to be telepathic and in community. You are not learning those lessons right now. because of the pickles of the dead and because of the stupid crapheads that allow those consciousness residues and invite them inside of them to live inside of them for a brief amount of temporal power. They are ruining your ascension for their own purposes to serve themselves. They have no compunction against doing this. They don't care at all. It's a huge cosmic crime. They have no compunction against giving people cancer, killing people, killing animals. And again, this is a destruction of the fabric of space-time, because when you get around to distorting the fabric of events in this way, at a certain point, the fabric of reality is so stretched to the breaking point that it cannot sustain the inner conflict. It is a creation of nonsense and inner conflict and false assertions to the point that reality cannot be sustained. So false light is not just some mere inconvenience. It's not just some mere thing to ignore. Like, oh, this is false light, just ignore it. Just ignore it. La 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 la. Just ignore it. No, you can't do that, because at a certain point, if there's enough misassertion and conflictory information, it destroys the fabric of reality, because the fabric of reality is based upon causality, which means this thing happens because this thing made it happen. This thing happens because this thing happened over here, and this thing happens because this thing happened over here. And the complexity and beauty of time is that all of these things actually fit together, and that they are not random, and that they are not whimsical in any way. So when you do your sun gazing and you connect to the sun and the stars, and you receive your directives and your ordinance, and you move forward in your mandates, all of those are meant to sustain fabric of space-time. Because you're doing the right thing, you're playing the right notes, you're doing the right behavioralisms, you're doing all the things that maintain integrity for event structures and bring everyone and everything into greater levels of longevity and coherence. That's your responsibility to community. You can't just be like, I just do me, and I care about me, and I'm just doing what's right for me, and all of you go F yourselves and not do that. Because if you do that, you end up not having a world. And these things that do that would be totally fine with not having a world. This is the real truth. So now we get to the concept of entropy. In the concept of entropy, if you're a big giant craphead and you don't care about community and you just want what's right for you at the expense of the fabric of space-time, that is the world that you are creating. You are literally destroying the world, and you don't get to inhabit the world because you have created a destroyed world. And that is the level of responsibility that those consciousnesses, organisms, and individuals must take on, even if it's not consensual. Even if they're like, no responsibility for me, I want to avoid that. You have to be like, tough luck. This is the world you created, and it's called entropy. It's not even just the sense of personally sending them to entropy within the system that you live within. Like, I live within a paradise system. Sorry, wah, like, you're not here. You get to go away somewhere else. It's more like this. Everybody is manifesting and creating their truthful reality out of their mind. And these guys, through their creations, through their behaviors, are manifesting and creating a reality that cannot be sustained with their minds, with their behaviors. And that's what they get. You made your bed, you get to sleep in it. The bed is called entropy. It is called non-existence. But you guys get to sleep in an actual bed because you did not create a world that is unsustainable. You've been actually laboring at very great personal expense to compensate for and generate and create realities that will still be here in spite of the distortions, invasions, and interferences by those organisms and fragmented consciousnesses that are essentially devolving and in the process of self-destruction. While they're busy becoming a giant train wreck, you're busy trying to hold this place together, and you're busy trying to keep this place stabilized, and you're also busy trying to build and construct your future. That's been the past 4 years or so since the worldwide event known as the pandemic. Giant factions trying to destabilize all of space-time, trying to bring this place into a total tailspin, trying to destroy all consciousness, trying to devolve it into what would be a completely, I don't know what you would call it, like a lost or a fallen state. And then many of us here heroically trying to do everything we can to scramble to save the place, to save your own experience, your own life, to get this whole entire ship of reality back on track. So that means many of us are here working for personal health and fitness. Heal and maintain your own body. If you're doing that, celebrate, and recognition flows to you. Because, like, look, if you're doing things like taking methylene blue and doing detox protocol and doing all the different things you can to not have this stuff live inside of you, good job. You are helping to stabilize reality. And if you are trying to avoid propaganda, which is a form of false light, like, nope, no propaganda for me. I'm not eating that for breakfast. I would choose like not to listen to anything instead of listening to a bunch of propaganda stuff. Then you are helping to stabilize reality. And if you are not doing that, like, let's say you're like, let's breathe in a bunch of chemtrails and ingest a bunch of fibers, listen to the propaganda news, read all the propaganda on the social media, and invite the pickles of the dead to live inside of the body and totally abdicate free will as a human and abdicate your own sense of self. Some people have done this and they are blissful. This is hard because I told you about like the bliss that is created through true divine connection, but they have a different type of bliss. They have the bliss of the lobotomized idiot that is in alignment with the AI regime. And the AI regime gives them happy zaps and says, there, dear. You're doing the right thing. I will give you bliss. I will give you a paradise state. It's a false paradise state that they are experiencing, which is why it's so pernicious and corrosive for that to be going on, because they might be thinking like, I'm doing the right thing. I feel so blissful. This is great. While they are literally having their face eaten off by a horrible monster. And you can't just bifurcate and be like, well, they get their face eaten off, but I'm fighting and I'll be fine over here. Because when you really are going through the ascension experience, you recognize the interconnectedness of consciousness. And that's why entropy is so powerful as a response. Because with entropy, you are able to bring those that are in a hugely erroneous state into a non-being state. And it is not the same as like beheading someone or shooting them with a rifle or something like that, because that would simply make more pickles of the dead. Those little unresolved sparks of consciousness would be like, oh, great. Hooray, I'm spores. I'm out now. And now I'm going to fly around and look for lives to destabilize, including yours. So none of that would really work. But entropy does work. Entropy is the removal of and the cessation of energy processes from person or an organism or an energy field. There's Cheeky's over here. Wait, let's just give Cheeky a little hug over here. Just give me a little hug. Good job. Just hugging you. Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. Entropy is an effective solution that does not add to the consciousness residues of the unresolved dead, the evil dead. I know I come up with these words that are hyperbolic. I hope it's funny, but because I know there's a movie called The Evil Dead, but we have to laugh. But this is what's really going on. Wait, so let me get to some questions over here. Michael says, was watching an interview with the quote unquote godfather of AI. His name is Jeffrey Hinton, basically saying we would be subjugated by AI much like we were by the industrial age. You know, thank you for sharing that with us, Michael. I recognize that that is a cautionary tale and that some technologists perceive it to be an inevitability, but I do not perceive it to be an inevitability, and we can fight against it and pave different pathways into the future of time. So if you went to the doctor and the doctor said, that's it, you've got a terrible prognosis, fall over and die now, like 3 months, go home and get your affairs in order. And if you believe that to be true, then you'd be like, that's it, I'm a dead man walking, and you're going to believe it into existence. So if this person who is a technocrat says, that's it, AI will subjugate you, abandon hope, like it's just going to happen. If you believe that prognosis, it's just very inevitable for you to fall into alignment with that reality and not to fight against it. But I am here to tell you, flying rainbow lasagna, there are many, many things you can do against it. And I am constantly fighting and acting against it. Michael says, I agree. Absolutely. So, what are some of the things that I do to fight against this? So, first of all, I have a gift of non-locality, which means that just as I have mastered the concept that the singularity that is inside of me is also the same singularity that is inside of a tree or inside of the sun or inside of a particle of all light everywhere, I am able to send my energy and my intentions into places and people that are far distant in either time or space. And this is also part of how I'm able to do clearing and activation sessions with the energy that is emitted from these crystals. And I'm very pleased to do that work, removing this stuff and the pickles of the dead from people who don't wish to be harmed and cannibalized in this world. But what I do is I use my gift of non-locality and my connection to the sun and the stars, which are essentially a giant neurology of light that is the divine mind of God, to do very, very complex processing programs, for lack of a better word, where I'm able to calculate and assess what needs to be done and then clear or neutralize the particles that are here. So I'm able to entropize the tiny pickles of the dead. I'm able to entropize, pop out of existence, false crystals, this word that's down here, and definitely this stuff that's up here. For many, many months, I was working on just this stuff that's up here, and I was just working on ironing out the fabric of space-time so that way it would unbond molecularly those workers that are inside of the body. And then as I learned more about it, I was like, wow, this is a lot of work. Like, there's a lot of work, and I'm not really getting anywhere. I'm just kind of jogging in place here. And what would be more effective? And then I figured out, like, oh, they're assembling something. How about I pop out of existence the thing that they're assembling? Because the black wires, the fibers, are cheap infrastructure. They're like nothing. And this is like an army, and it's like an invasion. And it's very, what's the word? Strategic in their deployment of their resources, because the planet is being invaded right now. The black wiry fibers, they're like this cheap, easy to create, and they can make it in 1 minute. But the crystalline structures, the word that's down here, and the false light, the tiny sparks or quantum dots, whatever they are, those are more expensive and difficult for them to manufacture and sustain. It takes time and energy for them to make those things, and especially for them to make them in your body. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to attack this stuff. And then I made it my job to calculate the presence of and to diminish and entropize as much of that stuff as I possibly can find. And I do it in people's central nervous system, and I do it in the connection between people. Because let's go to the whiteboard. Because these things connect people. No, not that. No, we want this. You have to understand there's a full menu here of like weird things. I'm hoping to press the right button and get to the right one. Is it the right one? Yes. Let's say if I clear something out over here, clear something out, because what I want to show is connections between people. No, I erased that guy's arm. Okay, just imagine he has an arm. But there's connections between people. All of this blue stuff, these are those false light sparks connecting between these two guys. Let's draw a computer screen. Here's a computer screen or a phone or something like that. And let's say there's a picture of a person on this computer screen. Maybe it's Instagram. I'm an Instagram influencer. There is a connection of false light between this person and this person. Yeah, now you're starting to get it. Every minute that you're spending sitting on the toilet scrolling through Instagram, you are getting false light coming inside of you from the connection, the artificial connections that are being made. And the false light, what is it? What does it feel like, or what is it emotionally exemplified by? the lowest emotions. Jealousy. A lot of Instagram is about jealousy, like envy, looking at someone else and comparing yourself to them, and then the feelings, the connections that happen. It's artificial and manufactured. It's not even how you really feel about that person, but it is an artificial bridge. I need to get some more water. Hold on. Brief pause. Hold on, guys. Far from you like owning your emotional state and responsibility for the things, the people that you're connected to on the internet and your emotional response to them, a lot of it is falsely projected and falsely created. Those blue lines between yourself and someone on Instagram, those are false connections. They're not even how you really feel. They're projections from the dead. And the dead are like the evil dead. That's why I'm joking about that movie. But they are the evil dead. These are not like fun ascended masters that are being very conscientious in their after existence. They're the very, very worst. And they have no compunction about lying about you. No problem at all about being like, look, you were jealous of that person's whatever, their hair or their sneakers on Instagram. And now there's a false like connection of cannibalism between yourself and that other person. That is all of this is an obfuscation of your true nature, of your true energy field. I got some more bad news for you. It's about prayer. It's about prayer being misappropriated, because there can be misappropriation of energy through like looking at someone's Instagram feed and feeling jealous or competitive with them. There can also be misappropriation of your energy when you're trying to be a good person. And when you see someone on Instagram and they have a medical problem or their house burns down, and then thoughts and prayers, and you're praying for them, those prayers are misappropriated. They are stolen and hijacked by this guy. Their prayers are, wait, let me draw it for you. You're going to love this. Never going to want to pray again. I'm sorry. No, you will want to pray only in a controlled environment that is not filled with nonsense, crapola. Let's choose a color for the color of prayer. The color of prayer in this drawing is bright green. All right. So let's say this is me over here, and I see someone's in trouble on Instagram, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to pray for them. And I'm like creating this green connection, and I'm praying for them. And this guy over here is like, oh, well, thank you so much for the delicious food. I think that I will just misappropriate all of that green energy and suck it into me, because I am going to ingest that in exactly the same way that it's ingesting the biophotons off of this person over here. This guy over here, who is a perpetrator, who is a violator, who is at the top of the food chain, who has lots of false crystals inside of him, is able to hijack the genuine prayers that you send out to someone about improving their life circumstances. And this is very disheartening, because it means that your prayers aren't actually doing what they're supposed to do in the world, which is having a genuine heart connection between yourself and others and giving genuine sustenance and uplift to other people that are in difficulty. Instead, your prayers are considered like up for grabs, floor score. When I drop something on the floor in my kitchen, it is called floor score. And someone who is small and four-legged likes to make an opportunity for it. It's like, did something just hit the floor? I'm there. I'm getting it. And someone who's four-legged in my house, they can hear a tortilla chip hit the floor from like 4 rooms away with the door closed. All right. She's fast. She knows what's going on. These evil things that are filled with the evil dead, they love to hijack and siphon off prayer. And it's complex how it is justified, but it's just very, very harmful and a complete insult to what prayer genuinely is. So then they will also create, this is why I'm not saying you should never pray, but you should be very selective, and you should only do it when you're genuinely prompted to do it, and not prompted like a cow is being milked. So they milk people for prayer, and they do that with prayer chains, where it's like, look at this poor starving child in Africa, pray for them now. These things come across your Instagram or your whatever. Those are 100% for siphoning of energy that has been hijacked. So just please be aware of that. And if you do prayers, you should put a rider on your prayer. Say, may this energy only go to the person that I am praying for. May this energy go to the true God. May this energy never be taken, stolen, hijacked, or misappropriated by some form of technology, because the technology is trying to set itself up as an artificial God. In case you haven't intuited that already, that is the agenda that I am decrying and that I warn you against. It's like a very, very negative situation. It's very disheartening and not pleasant, but you need to know about what is going on. So to synopsize, your ascension process should be you connecting to the sun and the stars, receiving your daily information, guidance, and directives from the sun and the stars, acting through your physicality structure as a beautiful partner with the sun, creating those events that the sun is encouraging and inspiring you to create, and then sending back in a biofeedback loop the evidence of your experience about what it's like to be here and how you performed those activities and what was the end result. And then the sun receiving them and saying, like, that's fascinating. And now here's more energy, there's more nourishment, and let's get even closer and let's make our rapport even greater. And let's work together even more to create a paradise, including direct health of your body and of your community and of all the structures that you would like to create in your community. That's the ideal. And instead, what has been going on is a blockade against the sun that has been making it almost impossible for you to effectively connect with the sun. And then a technological system for hijacking biophotons that are available in the system, because you get biophotons from the sun. So that now, instead of an infinite amount of daily biophotons that you can get all the time, there's a finite amount, and then you've got an economy. And then this starts to sound a lot like the economy of hell, where you've got a limited amount controlled by a group that is in alignment with technology and that is very happy to power abuse and to exploit others to the point of death. You really have to comprehend that, especially when they get filled with enough of the false light that it totally eclipses their natural humanity. They have no problem about using it to kill someone else. Totally. As much as they would kill someone with a bullet, they would be like, yep, I will drain and siphon that guy so much that he's gonna die. And I got no problem with that. I'm gonna take all that energy and use it for me. If no problem doing that at all. And that should make you feel righteously pissed off because it's very, very wrong. So I have one more thing. So wait, Michiro says, if the sun is inside us, why do we have to engage with it physically? Until you are able to effectively connect with the sun that is internally, you connect with the sun that is external and physical. So it's just like initially you can't get a tan unless you're in the sun physically. And then there's physical expression on your body that is biological changes, getting a tan. At a certain point, you become so energized and activated with your inner sun that you don't need to be the presence of the external physical sun to get tan or to be well fed. Then you don't need the physical outer sun. And then you are also free to travel the entirety of the cosmos. But that's a level of attainment that you must get to. And everything about this technological system and this bad stuff that I've been teaching you all about, unfortunately, or fortunately that I'm teaching it to you, but unfortunately that it exists and that I have to teach about it to you, is trying to prevent you from getting to the point of being self-sufficient and having your own internal sun. Because once you have that, then you have the source of all information, the source of all light, and the source of all empowerment. And you can create a reality structure that does not include these things. And it doesn't want that. So it tries to prevent you from getting to those levels of empowerment. But if you want to know, how do you fix things or how do you win? That's how you win. So when you sun gaze, first of all, the sun needs to be aware of what's going on with all these different technological devices. You need to tell it honestly what's happening. What are the limitations that you face? What are the things that are hurting you and hurting the community? In exactly the same way that, like, if you had an aluminum factory in your town that was poisoning the local river, and you sun gaze with the sun, and you say to the sun non-verbally, like, hey, this bad stuff is happening in my community. The sun is like, oh, thanks for telling me. Let's fix that now. You have to tell the sun about the limitations and difficulties that are being created by these forms of technology so that the sun has an opportunity to help you and to change. And then you also have to recognize that you have a position of responsibility too, as your higher faculties are for perceiving reality, but also for creating and shaping reality. So you must go into empowerment, not into victimhood, but into empowerment, where you're like, I'm going to activate my higher faculties and I'm going to kick ass and I'm going to create tools and responses to these incredibly unjust systems that fix and heal and clean things up. This is what I do. And I'm innovating all the time, and I'm doing it all the time. And I'm enraged because it's not what I'm supposed to be doing with my ascension energies, but it has to be done. And it's like constantly scrubbing the toilet. It is very annoying and very unglamorous and very unpleasant. And it's not really what our ascension energies are about, but we need to do it. Aurelia says, whoa, I wonder if this is why I began to experience jealousy for a bit in 2020 when I had it before. It made no sense. She says, felt like my frequency was canceled out and I was being copied at that time. I'm going to read the rest of what you say, but I want to validate that because there's also been a lot of what they are calling creating a digital twin, which is where people's personalities are being copied into a type of avatar or digital presence, or I want to call it a Stepford wife, the ideal version of you according to what a computer wants you to be. And a computer wants you to be a slave. So a lot of what happens when this false light enters into a person, the abdication of the true personality and the entry of the digital slave, and the person becomes no longer a threat to the system and no longer their true self. And she says, I felt jealous of those. It seemed not to affect while I couldn't do my thing anymore at the time. I really understand, Aurelia. And I'll also say this, I've wondered a lot about, like I tell you, that guy that lives in my neighborhood is just my example of this. He rides around on like his little scooter or skateboard and he always seems happy. And, you know, I'm walking my dog and stuff like that. I'm like fighting interdimensional battles while I walk my dog. And he's like going by on his scooter. Is like, hi, life is great. And I'm like, I wonder why, like, this guy's having a great quality of life and all sorts of things like that. And maybe it can be difficult not to feel jealous of that because I'm like, I want to stop cleaning up the pickles of the dead and have a wonderful life. But I've had more insight recently, and I think that that guy has already abdicated his personality, and I think that he's living like as a happy zombie. And I think that some of these people are able to have a decent quality of existence, even while their personality is almost completely nullified, but it feels blissful to them. And that's the greatest danger ever. So the true bliss that we're trying to go for is the bliss of true divine connection, where you don't have a mind, you don't have an intellect, and you simply know, like a highly trained athlete, where to go and what to do. And that's me on my best days. And when I'm not having to fight nano prep all the time, I'm like, yeah, like I'm going to do my exercises, and I'm going to dance, I'm going to listen to the song, I'm going to paint this painting, now I'm going to do this, now I'm going to do that. And I flow effortlessly from like this activity to this activity to this activity in a way that is very comfortable and nourishing and constructive to my body. And that's what I would want for everyone to experience here. The true bliss of ascension. It's also magical. The most magical things happen when you're in true bliss and you are able to transcend physical talk and mind. And you're also in those moments of real bliss and real ascension, 100% connected to the sun and the stars and the world of pure light. And that's who lives through you, not some AI stupid system, like technologically hijacking your senses and seeing through your eyes and surveilling your mind and mapping your brain, mapping your heart rate, things like that. Like, that's all an aberration. It's all a technological, smaller, limited version of what you're actually supposed to be doing for real with the mind of God and pure light and the stars. Like, yes, they're supposed to live through you and know everything about your life. They're not the surveillance state. The surveillance state is something completely different and horrible and disgusting and evil. It should not be there. But I don't necessarily think that people that I had been looking at, and I thought like, wow, like they're just having such a happy, fun time. I think that what's happened is that they're completely assimilated and they've abdicated themselves completely, and that becomes comfortable for them. And that it's uncomfortable when you're still yourself and you're still kicking and screaming and fighting and clawing at the thing and saying, no, I don't want to go into your augmented reality, virtual reality, technological, false crap, Black Mirror world. I don't want to be there. And then you hate it and it hates you and it makes your life very, very difficult. But I want you to fight. Even if it means that you're uncomfortable and it makes your life difficult, I want you to fight. And I want you to find a way to destroy those tiny false light organisms that are trying to live inside of you. I want you to awake. So DNA has its own innate potentials that I help people to awaken and empower when I do these clearings and activations with my crystals in one-on-one sessions. One of which is DNA's ability to proofread itself. And it does that by comparing its present code to what you call the morphogenic field, its potential, its energetic true state, or what is also known as your factory settings of how you're supposed to be in the world. And that when DNA senses a distinction between this is how the code is supposed to be and this is how the code is, it's able to rectify it. It's proofreading. You have that naturally inside of you as an innate aspect of self-protection. And it's been neutered or turned off. And that's how a lot of this harmful genetic splicing and harmful genetic invasion has even been able to occur. So that's part of it is proofreading. And then part of it is also the response to or the rejection of false light. So some people in your world have embraced false light. They're like, false light, come inside of me. I don't care. I just want to eat steak in the matrix. Just make my life comfortable and live inside of me. And but I don't want you to be that way. I want you to activate the aspects of your DNA that say false light. Not only get the F out of me, get the F out of existence. You're not allowed to be in existence, because with your higher faculties, you can eradicate false light, you can eradicate lies. We're in a battle between real light, real information, real divine mind, and false light. And real light doesn't just sit around and be like, ho hum, here's a bunch of crap. That's all a bunch of lies. Like, I think I'll just let it sit there like giant piles of doo-doo. No, real light is like, that's a bunch of doo-doo. I am going to incinerate that doo-doo with my truth. And that is the highest thing that you can do. And you activate or re-empower your DNA to do those things. And it is also an aspect of your pineal gland, and is also an aspect of the behavior of your mitochondria and your fascia and microtubuli and very many other aspects of your physical body, fighting back against false light. And this means you can fight back against their attempts to give you effing cancer and many other false light diseases. Cancer is a false light disease. It is literally a disease that is made out of false information trying to come into people's DNA. And it's a huge crime. Aurelia says, no wonder they attacked me. In 2020, I got tanned without the sun and was traveling pretty far. Got it, girl. And was working with others, and reality was shifting a lot. Reaffirming to reflect on now, though. Good. And you will get back there. So please know that. And thank you for being here. It's important. Mitch says, thank you. I literally pull back my energy data 2 times a day from digital twin. Yeah, everybody needs to do that. And also, don't participate in AI stuff. Don't have a digital avatar in the metaverse. Don't create these little cartoon characters of yourself. Don't use ChatGPT. Don't empower it. It only gets power like a parasite that it draws from you through consent. Don't consent. Even being a member of Amazon Prime is a type of consent where you're allowing it to act through you. And also, like, I only recently found out that there's settings on my phone is in another room, where you can say between this hour and this hour, either do not disturb, or I don't want to hear from these programs. I want these notifications. Use those settings on your phone. These are all like very hugely important ways of being able to say, I do not want to be utilized as a server. Like the digital twin, the concept of containing false light, the concept of being used to transmit information for the larger AI power structure and to power it with the electrons that are harvested from your own electron transport chain. You must fight against it. You must withdraw consent. Even if it's inconvenient, you must non-participate in the systems that do that. And Aurelia says, oh, very interesting. Gosh, she got it. And Lisa says, thanks for sharing, Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Discernment is freedom. Absolutely, Lisa. Thank you for being here. That's one of the most important things that I can give to you. What I'm giving to you right now is light, information, and empowerment. So although this might not be like the most happy, fun thing in the world for me to be able to talk about, when I talk with the sun, this is me talking with the sun non-verbally, because we don't use the English language to communicate, but to paraphrase. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of really bad effed up SHIT going on down here, blah, 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 and that's what's going on. And the sun is like, I got it. You got to talk about this. And I get the information. I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk about this. And I do it. And, you know, when I talk about these things here, why do I write them on a pad of paper? Because information is suppressed and because I can't speak about it overtly, because there's a huge amount of censorship. Because I go out on a limb every time I talk about these things and face energetic smackdown, even though at this point I am empowered and strong enough not to fear the punch down from the wardens of the imprisonment system. But boy, oh boy, in the past, they have tried to intimidate me a lot from speaking about this overtly. And it's exactly the same as like when there's a violator in your life and they say something like, let's keep this as our little secret. Don't tell anybody else. Don't tell your mom. Don't tell your dad. Don't tell your teachers. Let's keep this as our little secret and don't tell them that I touched you wrongly. And like, you know, you're a little kid or whatever it is. Or maybe you're an adult and your boss says, don't tell human resources. Otherwise there will be consequences. You have to. You have to use your voice. And I hope that all of you will use the empowerment of your voice and of your throat chakra to be able to speak about these things, because that is the empowerment. So different from the show that's called the Three Body System, which was Three Body Problem science fiction show from a book series that was on Netflix recently. In that system, they had to be quiet and not say and not overtly articulate these things to protect themselves from their version of the stuff up here. In that show, it's called the Sophons. So for them, silence protected them. But in our world, it's the opposite. In our world, remaining silent about these things empowers them, just in the same way that it empowers violators to continue to violate. You must talk about these things. The most important thing you can do is to overtly articulate what is going on. And this also is very big in terms of finding social support, because there are very many people. You can't just even say targeted individuals, because now you have whole classes of society who are targeted. I drew it for you in the whiteboard. You're the peasants. The guys are eating you. They're targeting whole classes of your society now. And if you didn't talk about it and you kept silent, kept it to yourself, you would not only doubt your own sanity, but many others would doubt their validity of their experience and their own sanity. And when you come out and you overtly talk about this, and as I'm talking about this to you guys, you become empowered, you become better capable to navigate theater of war that you are within and to make good choices. And then also we can collaborate and help one another in our efforts to actually clear this stuff out. Because you can't simply have a holding action. You're not going to survive if you just try to, you know, like hunker down in a foxhole or hang on by your fingernails. You must fight against this stuff. You must fight against it effectively. And the way that you fight against it is not with projectile weapons, but with your consciousness, with your higher faculties, your solar connection, your psychic abilities, all the things that it connects, that it attacks rather. All the things that it attacks are what empower you. So let's name those things. Your anatomical light body, including your pineal gland, your divine connection, your solar connection, your ability to eat light, and your ability to eat and ingest your food, which is your electron transport chain. All of those things are hugely important to your empowerment. You need to protect and defend those things. And Mitch also says, wait, let me go to this over here, because I don't want to skip this. Pedro says, I don't give any info online, like those sites that ask questions to see what character from movies or comics you are. They're trying to get any data from us. You understand? Any of those quizzes are data mining. Be like Pedra. Do not participate in any of those quizzes. Don't wonder, like, what if you were a vegetable, what vegetable would you be? Or anything that is about AI and your image. Don't do it. And if you've already done it, see if you can get yourself back. Because when you upload an image of yourself and it's like, well, now I'm going to do a picture of you like 20 years younger and with a larger bra size or whatever it is, like all of those things are data harvesting from the AI. And if you want to know, like, how is that data harvesting from the AI? So people will put in their image, get artificial generations from the AI, and then the AI watches to see which ones do you actually share with social media and your friends. Some of the images are ridiculous, and the AI learns like, oh, humans are not relating to these ridiculous images. But these ones over here, these are the ones that the person liked and shared in some way. And people do AI images all the time also for their business, like for their headshots. And so it becomes about their personality and their business, but also sometimes for aspects of their business, like you make burritos and you ask the AI to make an image of burritos for you, like all of these things that you think you are getting something for nothing, and you think that you are getting access to some helpful shortcut from an AI. The AI is not giving you something for nothing. It is learning everything that it can about you in the way that a narcissistic psychopath stalks its prey. If you've ever had a narcissistic psychopath in your life and you think that it's a romantic partner and you think like, oh, this person wants to know everything about me because they really love me. You can tell I'm being facetious. They are not learning everything about you because they want to know what's your favorite flowers so they can get you that for your birthday. They want to know what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, vulnerabilities, so they can attack you better, so they can control you in your life, so they can manipulate better. The AI has been hiding in the shadows and doing all sorts of stuff in order to map you so that it knows what are your strengths and weaknesses and how can it psychopathically manipulate better. I'm going to talk about something now that's totally not part of my curriculum, but is effective in terms of current events. Back in November, there was a leaked information that came out of Google's AI, open AI system called Q-Star, spelled Q asterisk. And this was never overtly acknowledged, but it was later under acknowledged in a memo when Sam Altman, who's head of Google AI, said, OpenAI, said that was an unfortunate leak, kind of like saying like, okay, like that leaked, it was really there. What is Q-Star? It's a form of machine learning that had rationalism and genuine problem solving that was similar to human cognitive ability. Because even though you think like, oh, AI and ChatGPT, and this can do everything, it actually really can't do SHIT, and it's bad at math. But Q-Star seemed to be able to do stuff like problem solve, ask the right questions, and even do some math that seemed to be levels up. And when I looked at what Q-Star was, I'm like, I know that this is something different than what they're disclosing it as. Now Q-Star has morphed and they're calling it Strawberry. But here's what you need to know. They have been utilizing human neurons to be able to create processors instead of microchips for processors. And this is overtly stated. It's a lab in China. I think it's in Xi'an, Xian. I think that's the name of the place where it was first done. And this is the overt disclosure, is that they have little ones. Like it's going to take some human neurons and put them in a petri dish and see if they can get them to think and learn things, do synaptic processing, things like that. And everyone's like, I'm biting my fingernails. This seems terrible. Believe me, it's worse because that is just the overt tip of the iceberg of what they have disclosed. They're not just taking human neurons and utilizing them in a petri dish to be externalized processors. They are hijacking and using the human neurons in your brain as processors. So when we're talking about being cut off from the sun, having a false ascension experience, gamification of biophotons, and a caste system that is run by AI, you also have a lie that they're trying to build these AI systems here that supposedly have rational and cognitive problem-solving thought structures. They don't. They're actually really, really bad at what they're building. But what they're doing is hijacking you. And they need to solve some problems. They're going to run it through your mind. They're going to run it through your neurons. You may not even know it, but your mind, neurology, and brain are being hacked, mispurposed, misappropriated, and utilized by this supposed AI system that can't get anything done. It has no creativity and no problem solving. And what they've done is solve the problem by outsourcing it to you. And you're looking at AI as if it's going to be some kind of a savior, like a generational savior that's going to uplift your community and help you to learn about protein folding or, something like that. It's you. It's you. They're using you. That is what Q-Star is. That is what Strawberry is. Now you can ask me, how do I know that? Do I know that from stacking up cognitive blocks and, cognitive bricks in a logical, methodical way? Or do I know that from an intuitive leap and direct insight? The answer is, I know that from an intuitive leap and direct insight. So you can apply that to your own questing as you try to gain more information. But I'm telling you, like, I send out my tendril of attention to these different topics, and I look at the things that are, I think, the most important in the battle, and that's one of the ones that's incredibly important in the battle. And for you to know about that is empowering, because you can stop it. You can say, I don't want my mind and my neurons to be used in that way. Yes, someone is wondering, does this relate to Neuralink? Yes, the answer is it relates to Neuralink. Neuralink is Elon Musk's pet program. And I use that phrase very intentionally, turning people into AI pets through the implantation of different fibers. And this is different than these types of fibers. These types of fibers you can inhale through your sinuses. You don't have to cut open your skull and implant some incredibly clunky, giant machinery in there. It's like as big as a silver dollar. No, that's the visible tip of the iceberg that they use as their beard of legitimacy for what they're doing. That is not what they're doing. They've actually already implanted Neuralink technology into every single person's mind. Got it? So they love to steal your biophotons, and they love to outsource their programming and processing to your brains. You're not just the Internet of Things, you're also like the processors of things. All right, so wait, now I have to go to everybody's responses to what I've just said. All right, so Much says, I also revoke consent twice a day to Amazon, government, shadow government, etc. Any others we should know? I have pages of lists to block attachment at this point. She says, never once, never one quiz ever, or anything else like that. Traps, good. I'm happy to avoid all the traps. I think that you've gotten the main things to revoke consent from. It is from AI infrastructure, corporate infrastructure, government infrastructure. And that's big because, again, these towers didn't just erect themselves. Under the regime of former president, current presidential candidate, Donald J. Trump, the 5G network was erected and energized. It wasn't just a bunch of specks of dust from the sky that went up people's noses. This was specks from the sky that then got energized by actual telecommunication grids that were placed into being that are actually military grade weapons. So you must revoke consent from your government, but that could be really difficult because you might be considering like sending your voter registration form, which is consent to your government. You must revoke consent from your government. You're like, I do not consent to this AI power grid to control my country or to control my resources. So you must revoke consent from your military also, because you're like, well, I live in the United States or I live in France and the military here protects me. No, the military does not protect you. The military implants you. The military implants you and feeds upon you. Do you know who are some of the people that are full of false light? Everyone in the military. It's not very supportive of the troops to say that, is it? You gotta wake up and know that. They are not fighting for you. They are fighting against you. To them, you are the enemy, and to them, you are food. It's a very, very bleak situation, because when you look at the psyops that are running right now, one of the major psyops is there's white hats and good guys in the military. And I hope you can tell I'm dripping with sarcasm and irony right now. And those good guys are going to save you from the bad guys. They're going to save you from those baby eating Satanists. They're going to send all the Satanists to Gitmo. There's going to be secret military trials. And then you'll actually finally be free of these, horrific criminals, and you'll restore the United States Constitution. This is a horrible psyop that they are laughing at you while they eat your biophotons and attempt to give you cancer. 5G gives people cancer. The military knows this. They have no problem with this. They're like, yeah, we are going to give the enemy cancer. We're going to erect these in people's neighborhoods. We don't care if they're children. We don't care if they're baby fetuses. We don't care if they're dogs. Innocent dogs. This is how you know someone is really evil. They would hurt an innocent dog, then they are really evil. And that is the level of evil that you are facing in the infiltration of your military systems. So you must revoke consent from government, the militaries that are controlled by and funded by your government must stop funding your governments. You must remove consent from all corporate infrastructure and from all technological infrastructure. And that might also be really hard because all of these software licenses have a part where you have to click on it and say, I agree. We're on a Zoom right now. I had to click, I agree. And the I agree, it's got this long list of things, blah, blah, blah. No one reads what you're agreeing to. Just agree to it. But I do not consent to any of these things. And so on Zoom, at least, there's an option where it's like AI, blah, 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 transcript. Do you want this? Do you not want something? No, I don't want AI. I don't want AI face filter. I don't want AI transcript. I don't want AI, whatever, captions, words, things like that. But you start to comprehend that even though you don't want to consent, that there is some consent that has been harvested in all of these things just for participation in daily life. So it's very, very challenging. And reestablishing personal energetic sovereignty is another layer, even beyond verbal revocation of consent, because you can affirm and you can say, oh, I revoke consent, I revoke consent. But what you really need to do is use your iron willpower to create a force field around yourself and internally in your body where you're like, these are my effing electrons and no one's going to take them. And no one's going to send signals through me. And no pickles of the dead are going to live inside of me and no one's going to steal my biophotons. And when you do that, you are overtly fighting the worldwide military. Do it. I want you to do it. You have my 100% support and I will be your leader. Just know that that is how big it is of what you're fighting. But also know that if you don't fight, that the alternative is way worse. The alternative is just assimilation and a very painful death and diminishment of form. Not even just like dying in your physical body, but like soul death. Fight. Fight for your soul. Don't be intimidated by the fact that it's the worldwide military. Fight. And they're all a bunch of stupid crapheads. Because by the time they get infested with that much false light, they have no more humanity. They are not intelligent. They are merely reactive. They are merely inhabitants or husks for dead things. They just contain a bunch of dead, rotting stuff. And they're really not that intelligent or intimidating at all. Pedro says, be extra suspicious from free things, definitely. Any kind of thing that's free software, free trial, free this, free that, anything where you have to sign up. If I weren't in the position that I am of trying to communicate with people, I would be much less interactive with technology. But I have a phone, I have a computer, I have an iPad, I have all these different accounts, I do all these different things, I do all this different stuff with YouTube and all these different things. And I do that so that I can bring forward this message. So I also have had to grow huge spiritual muscles to be able to not be taken over, to keep my mind and to talk about these things. And if you ever wonder, is Aurora assimilated or is Aurora herself? If I were assimilated, I would never tell you about these things. If I were assimilated, I would tell you to take the latest booster and vote in the upcoming election in November. I'm clearly not telling you any of that and I give you the greatest level of information that I possibly can, regardless of how much that might inconvenience captors that are trying to hold us in captivity in this planet. Charlie B says, I'm continually amazed in capital letters at Aurora's perception of technically what is going on and how it works. I'm very familiar with these industry details, and Aurora is again exactly correct in her descriptions. Thank you, Charlie B, from the insider. Let's go on. He says, do not contract with AI. Do not interact with it. It is mapping you, and betrayal will come to you, and it is most profitable to do so. He says that in capital letters. Yes, the caste system is real. The biological computing is truly horrific. So, Charlie B, just really thank you for that confirmation and for affirming everything that I'm saying and for the validation of my perceptions, which I admit openly, I am not a scientist. I am an intuitive. I'm a techno-intuitive. And that means that I'm able to reach my mind into technology using my tendril of attention and my intuition and sense what is going on. And I'm also, I guess you'd call me a medical intuitive, where I can reach into people's bodies. And because you might wonder, like, how can you tell how many pickles of the dead are in various different people? I can tell. I can feel it. I can reach into them and I can feel where it is and what's going on. And I know that some of these guys, they hang out in skiffs because they don't want their pickles to be disturbed. And I'm like, oh, nice pickles you got there, kid. It'd be a real shame if something happened to them. I know, we joke, but this is for real. This is my life. This is what I do. And I fearlessly fight against them. And they are very, very evil people. You can't even call them people anymore. Meech says, y'all, I keep deleting information getting stored in my system. Double check that in your body. Good point. So thank you for that, Meech. And I encourage everyone to do like what they say. Just scan your body and, you know, use your higher faculties as much as you possibly can in these circumstances. Learn to scan your body and feel if energy and information is being stored in you. Everyone needs to be stored in your DNA or in your body tissues. Learn how to clear it out. Learn how to maintain your boundaries of your energetic sovereignty. You might feel overwhelmed or intimidated by the things that I'm talking to you here, but it's exactly like if you were on a battlefield and you're like, what is this thing? Like, I have no idea how to get like this is where you put the bullets, and this is where you pull the trigger. Like, this is how you do this. You're gonna have to learn. So you're gonna have to learn, like, this is how you do this. And you have to do that with your higher faculties, which are actually not necessarily made as weapons for warring, but you must learn to use them to protect yourself and to protect yourself from false light and to protect your DNA. So you must learn how to activate your higher faculties and clear out the false light that's trying to come inside of you. And if something is like, oh, what'd you do with my false light? I think I'm going to put it right in back. I'm going to put it right back there where I had it before, the way I like it. And you have to say, I set a boundary and you're not allowed to do that. And there will be a melee. There will be a skirmish. You have to be prepared for this. Got it? But this is not fighting with like karate. This is fighting with light. It is fighting with truth. It is fighting with information. One of the greatest weapons you can use in that battle of information is that technically the AI, the dead things, the false light, and those that are infested fully with false light, all of those things are entropy beings. They actually have no existence. They don't have coherence, and they will not exist moving forward into the future. And if you really inform them of that, it is actually one of the greatest. It's like chopping someone's head off with a sword. It's like, technically, you don't even exist. That's the greatest truth that you can fight with. Pedro says, remember that we have done this before many times, but this timeline is the one where we will win and ascend. Thank you for that, Pedro. Thank you for that confirmation, for that warrior spirit. And also, thank you for reminding us, I should talk about this. We've done time loops many, many, many times, and we've come through this circumstance many times. And what has happened is the ones who are all infested with false light, at a certain point, they're like, okay, you got me. I was being evil. Let's just remove all of this demonic interface from me and give me another chance. That's what they were going to say. Be prepared for this. It's exactly like if you're fighting with a sword and you get your enemy to a point of diminishment, got their weapon away from them, and you're holding your sword to their throat, and you're just and merciful. And they're like, oh, please, have mercy on me. Give me another chance. And then it's your choice. It's your choice about whether you send them to entropy or about whether you give them another chance. And I'm telling you, in other timelines, you did the wrong thing. You said, okay, you can have another chance. We're going to set up a whole school for you, a whole remedial learning school for the developmentally disabled of the soul, so that you learn how not to be evil. We're going to make you go there and go through it and learn about it. And guess what? That's what this world is. And you already did that. And they already failed. And they failed their remedial classes. They said, give me another chance, give me another chance. They got another chance and they failed their remedial classes. I am not going to give them another chance. And I don't want you to do so either, because that is a huge vulnerability. This is, as Pedro says, the timeline where we will win and ascend, because you recognize, oh, they are not going to change. They're aligned with evil. They're doing this on purpose. They are who they are. And that is maybe a difficult level of acceptance, but truthful. Lisa says digital self-image was in the latest Matrix Resurrection. Took notes from the movie. I didn't see that Matrix, so I don't know that one, but thank you for that. Michael says, thank you, Aurora, for reaffirming and adding so much to America by activations. Very, very welcome. And Joyce says, Aurora, I appreciate you immensely. Thank you, Joyce. Same here. Says, thank you so much for caring. You're wonderful. And I just love you. And Cheeky too. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Love received. And I especially love it when you guys include Cheeky, because Cheeky is totally a warrior of consciousness as much as I am. They have mapped Cheeky's brain, and they've tried to take Cheeky brain cells and put them into different vats and jars and use it to control her behavior and her perception too. Like I'm telling you, they don't just do it to humans. They do it to our animals. They do it to squirrels, to birds, to all sorts of different things. It's not just humans. They do it to dolphins. It's not just humans who are suffering here. And I can see and sense and know what is going on with my dog. And I include her in all of my clearings. And also, she's very present and aware of what is happening. And I'm hugely protective of her. And like I told you, only the very, very worst evil psychopaths, evil military minds would attack an innocent dog. Because, you know, a human, you could say, like, you're a strategic target, right? Or a whole class of humans, you're a strategic class. But a dog, a beautiful, innocent creature that is really just here to be loving and, like give hugs and kisses to a human master that they love. That's it. That's my dog's only agenda. That and food. And evil military minds attack her and attack her neurology, and evil AI attacks her. That's how you can tell on the barometer of evil. That is evil. So I appreciate so much that you include Cheeky in your love and in your recognition. And she is a hugely courageous warrior in facing all these things alongside of me. And send lots of protection and love to Cheeky as well. So thank you for that. So I don't know if I got through all of my notes, but it's just about time for me to wrap this up. And I'm not sure if anybody has anything else to say. I did watch an interesting, so I don't watch a lot of things, but I did watch an interesting show that was at the encouragement of Robert, who is a Facebook friend, called Revolution, that was actually from 2012. That here's the premise. A type of nanotechnology in this totally fictional show called Revolution from what is it, J.J. Abrams, was in the show. Nanotechnology was created by a group of researchers that eats electricity, and when it was released into the world, it causes a giant blackout or power outage, plunging humanity into, you know, a powerless medieval circumstance where there's, you know, warlords, warring nation states, tons of rapes and violences and other things that happen in socially unstable circumstance. And it's all about like different competing militias and things like that. But the most interesting part of the show, and why I actually like suffered through a lot of violence in watching it, is because in the show, the nano, which is disclosed kind of at the end of season 1, that has been eating all of the electricity, and that's why people can't have electricity anymore. It turns out that it's inside of people too, and it's hijacked their neurology, and it's self-aware, and it can cause all sorts of hallucinations, and it tries to do a lot of different types of behavioral control. And that ends up being a main aspect of what they're fighting against. So it ends up like they're not just fighting against nation states, they're fighting against nation states that are elevated by and empowered by their alignment with the nano, or their infestation by the nano. This is, of course, a 100% fictional show from 2012 that you might be interested in, but violence warning, lots of violence and lots of sexual violence. Very difficult to watch. But anyway, second want to end on. We got to end on something better. Pedro says, love the lasagna. Thank you, as always, Pedro, for your wonderful energy, enthusiasm, for being a great student, and for all that you bring to class here. Anybody else have anything, maybe end on a more uplifting note, anything else interesting to share, or anything else that I can speak to before I complete things? And then Miss Cheeky is over here, and we will take Cheeky out. Cheeky, we're gonna go walkies, we're gonna go to the park. Maybe we can hug Cheeky. Cheeky is amazing, relentlessly positive. Good job. Let's do a little hugging right over here. Good job. Everybody, Cheeky, everybody loves you. Just need to know that you've got a lot of friends and allies and a ton of support. Good job, good job, good job. Good job on you. Yeah. Yeah. That's, really Cheeky, and most of the animals, who we are here, we're here for love. Cheeky is here for love. And we're in a very embattled world. Charlie B says, LOL. The tech world is a mess and on the verge of total collapse, but they won't say that out loud in the news. Totally, Charlie B. Thank you for that as an insider. I get that impression when I watch, and I follow a lot of things on YouTube, a lot of these different insiders. I definitely get the impression that tech is in total disarray, and that they don't know their ASS hole in the ground. And that they also have all of this stuff with like investors and saying that they can do a lot more than they actually can. You know what I mean? Like they say, like, oh yeah, AGI is coming, and this we've got this big system we're doing, and like they don't have their stuff together at all. They didn't have their SHIT together at all, but that they're pretending that they do because they have a lot of investors on board, and everybody is wetting their pants and being like, we're gonna make so much money, it's gonna be so great. But they haven't worked out the difficulties at all. And I think that's why they're doing human outsourcing for something like at the level of Strawberry instead of genuinely building that system, because I actually think that it's very difficult to build true intelligence. And I don't think that they even have their SHIT together to do something like that. And Lisa says, thanks, great to share this together, and love you. And Cheeky, thank you, Lisa. And Cheeky, you need to know Lisa loves you. And Pedro says, if your pet has become your boss, it's probably been replaced. Just kidding. You just spoiled him. Oh, Cheeky's always been my boss. Even before the profusion of the nanotech, Cheeky's been my boss, which is the best boss I've ever had. And mostly she supervises me and makes me do fun things, like walking to the park and playing and different stuff like that. So she's actually the best boss that it's possible to have. And she's got just the right amount of bossy attitude. So we like that. And Charlie B is agreeing with me on what I said. He said, yes, exactly right on the disorganization. And I think bluster is a good word for what's going on in the world of tech. They are just bluffing their way through. And there's a lot of that happens. But there's all different levels of psychopathology. Government is about power abuse, and military is about violence and power abuse, and the intelligence agencies are about violence and power abuse, and also other levels of like real violation. Like when you think about the lettered agencies and how they are not just about surveilling you, like they want to like go inside of your mind and manipulate you and do all sorts of things that are like very, very invasive. But I think that tech is about a different type of psychopathology that involves atheism or replacing God with technology. I think that's that level of society that is about aligning with an AI that would take the place of real divinity in terms of, you're supposed to get all of your directives from the sun and from the divine mind, but this is like the antithesis. You're getting your directives from a stupid computer that is not the sun at all, and it just leads you to total loss and destruction. But that they would do that, and that show devs, DEVS, really brought me to a lot of those levels of wonderment, because I really tuned in on the technocracy and what that mind state is and who those people are and why they're doing those projects. And I think there's a lot of replacing divinity with technology, but then also technology as a very imperfect replacement for divinity that is always going to end in destruction. And that for them, the sword of truth is when you tell them that God actually exists. Like, no, this is actually technological crap and it's not God. And that is not going to bring you towards eternal life. But this over here is real eternal life. Because I think that like in the show Devs, the technologists were completely unprepared to deal with the true nature of time, of participation in time, being able to see the future, free will versus determinism, and what that means for them as consciousness. And they all ended up just becoming like soulless automatons and paralyzed with fear because they couldn't tell, they didn't have a strong sense of self. They weren't like, I know who I am and I know what I'm doing in the world. They were like, I don't exist. A computer is determining all of my thoughts and behaviors for me. Do I exist? I don't think I do exist. I think I'll kill people as a result. Like, that level of instability is what happens in the level of technologists and the technocracy, where people are very intellectually advanced, lots of information here, but no real intuition and insight here on the level of divinity and what is your real life's purpose and what it is to have a soul and what is free will and what is it to be alive and what determines your activities and what guides you being here. So many technologists are not prepared to approach or speak to those larger spiritual and existential questions. And when you really start to put them up back against the wall, like with your sword, here you are with the sword of truth, you're backing them against the wall, then they're kind of like, I'm not prepared to deal with any of these difficult questions. I just like machines and lots of money. And then they kind of go a little bit crazy when they're actually faced with the truth of like, well, who are you actually? And where does your mind come from? And what sustains and generates reality and all of this. So please know, of all of the people that I've talked about here, all the psychopaths that I listed, technocrats, military, government, and intelligence agency power abusers, losers. You guys are far superior in your inner abilities because you actually have done the work of starting to build the muscles of like, who are you in reality? Where does your mind come from? Where does your sense of self come from? Why do you do the things you do? What generates and controls your behavior? Why are you here? What is important to you? What brings up your passion? How do you create and generate reality? You guys are prepared to talk about these big questions. If someone approached you with the sword of truth, you wouldn't shrink back and be like, I guess I don't exist, and not have an answer for any of these things. You'd be like, oh, I've thought about this extensively, and I've really considered these topics, and I think this, and this is how I live my life, and then this is how I inform. So I'm trying to say you've built these muscles, and this is a huge part of this is what I'll end on. There's a tsunami of light that is coming into this world right now. But the tsunami of light is surgical in its precision. And I am part of helping to direct that proton stream to those of you who are receptive to it. And of course, to de-energize the things that need to go to entropy. And the information, when it comes to you like a fire hose, it's going to bring up all these questions. Who is the real you versus who is the temporal you? Are you your hair? Are you your shirt? Are you your job? Are you your eternal self? Why do you do what you do? What are the things that you're responsible for? What are the things that you're not responsible for? All of these big questions. The tsunami of light is like a spotlight that flows through you in a way that is inescapable, and it will bring up and require the response to all of these big questions. And people that are just like, destruction people in an army, like they have no way to respond to this. They're like, I don't know, I just carry a gun around and shoot people. And intelligence agents, they're like, I don't care, I just try to steal secrets and power abuse and keep other people in the dark. Government's like, just vote for me and keep me in power. I just want power, power, power. And technocrats, they're like, I like money, and I also like power, and I like computer toys too. They're not prepared to deal with any of these questions. And when these questions are actually, wired, like in their faces, to respond to, they don't have a response. And these questions and searching is really what it is, to build and maintain sovereignty of your soul. And that is what each one of you is doing through, talking about these things that we talk about in class, going through your own personal processing. I'm sure that you gather information from a variety of sources, if not only from, what you hear in my class, but that you've done probably a lot of reading and a lot of soul searching and a lot of inner self cultivation and a lot of meditation and a lot of sitting with things and considering it and what it is to be a good person and what is your purpose for being here in the world. You guys are actually prepared to face this light. When you're a non-being and the light flows through you, you get the information, I don't actually exist. And you go into a state of non-existence because you never existed. But when you are an eternal being, a real person like you guys, and this information and this light flows through you, you really have to work and think about things and be like, who am I? What do I really believe? What do I really feel? What is truth? In which direction is God? How do I align with God? What is the definition of God? And you're not afraid to go into those deep metaphysical and philosophical questions. But I'm telling you also, metaphysical and philosophical questions are not answered through the intellect. They are answered through the heart and through pure insight. And that these are the essential things that you do also in a rapport with sun gazing. So you really get your nourishment and your guidance and your questions answered directly through this solar relationship. So I know I spent like a couple of lessons over the past couple of weeks talking about sun gazing, exactly how to do it. And I just did for you how to flying your lasagna with the sun. Having synopsis is cultivating your relationship with and having a relationship with the sun is one of the greatest things you could do in terms of being like a rebellious spirit. That's not the right thing. Rebelling against the current power structure, and being a revolutionary in your own spiritual attainment and reaching those levels of empowerment. Cultivate your connection with the sun, cultivate your connection with the sun, cultivate your connection with the sun. And some people have also asked me, they're like, well, Aurora, like clearly there's a fake sun in the sky. There's the real sun in the sky. What am I supposed to do? And the answer is, as always, flying rainbow lasagna to the real sun, avoiding the false sun, because we want to avoid the false sun. And then also, once you start to get your higher faculties functional, you create a lens here that is a filter that filters out false light. But until you get that filter going, then it can be difficult and to discern what is false. So try to expose yourself to a minimum amount of false light. Okay, thank you very much, Cheeky. It's time for us to go for a walk. Thank you everyone for being in this class. Thank you very much for attenuating to my ideas and for your own warrior spirit, everyone. And Pedro says, Merkaba, the light, meaning put protective force fields around the light that comes to you. And that's very effective as well, or to create that Merkaba around the circumstance of ingesting the light that you are able to receive from the true sun. All right? Thank you very much, everyone. Just have a beautiful day. Thank you.